Commissioner Zuber, will you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Ocon?
Here.
Commissioner Bennett?
Here.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins? Here. Commissioner Acharya? Here. Commissioner Graham-Hudak?
Good evening.
Commissioner Engel is not here, and Commissioner Zuber here, and Chairman Green.
I am here. And of course, we
you.
have our planning staff, Jeff Goulet and Angela Wilashevitz. And while we are on that subject of the planning staff, I want to make a little bit of an acknowledgement. You know, what we do up here is very important to the community, hopefully, but it's not possible without the help of the planning staff because they go through a lot of work to prepare these projects for us. And one of the people that is very instrumental, well, as long as I've been on the planning commission, she's been in the planning department. And unfortunately for us, and maybe fortunately for her, she's retiring. Angela Wilashevitz, good luck to you. Angela's been with the department for over 25 years, is that correct? And if there's anything you would like to say, anything, you don't have to. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to acknowledge because you've been very important to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Green, and thank you all commissioners. I appreciate your willingness to volunteer and work for the community and work to implement quality development and sensible, logical development for the community. I've enjoyed every minute of working with the planning department, and I wish you luck as you go forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I just want to say very officially that you are to be commended. Didn't mean to make you blush or anything, but. Okay, on to business. We met last in November. November 19th, in fact. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from November 19th's meeting?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have an agenda tonight consisting of four items. One is a site plan and three are public hearings. The public hearings are there for the public to make comments if they desire. If you have questions or comments, we hope that you will make them brief and try not to duplicate something that someone else has said. But we do ask that you fill out one of our forms, completing your name and address, and give your name and address at the podium should you decide to come up. So that's going to be the first three items tonight. And the very first item is the Krupp Casalou Family Trust rezoning. We're considering rezoning this parcel from rural residential to R1 single-family residential. And this is located north of Warren and west of Ridge Road. Jeff, could you give us more detail?
Yes, this request to rezone is the Krupp property located just to the west of Ridge Road, north of Warren Road. The future land use map in this area is very low-density residential, up to 1 unit per acre. If you look at the zoning map, I'll back up to it, everything around it is already zoned R1. So the request is basically to rezone it consistently with all of the surrounding property that's already zoned R1. The intent of the project sponsor is to combine it with the property to the south and the properties on the corner for a future low-density residential neighborhood. So at this point, we have no specific plans for the property. So right now, we're just looking at zoning as it's consistent with the development patterns and the future land use map. And we'd recommend approval.
All right, and we have a project sponsor here or a property owner or anything to comment further on this or no?
Mike? So.
Chairman Green, I'd like to open the public hearing.
Okay.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there anything that needs to be added to this request? Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, well, then we're going to go right to the audience then, and ask if there's any comments that anyone would like to make. We're going to start with the first row here. Come on up and state your name and address, please.
My name's Robert Miller. My residence is 48429 Joy Road, and I live halfway between Beck and Ridge, and we have experience with the development that was right next to us, and we have some concerns about your clustering of the homes and how it will fit in with the existing community, because the subdivision that was put next to us, it doesn't match up with the rural designation of the area.
We don't have a development plan at this time, so right now we're just
Yeah.
looking at zoning, and so
Yeah, this is just this is zoning, and it's a change in the zoning density.
Okay, and then how will that affect the natural beauty designation of that road?
the Natural Beauty Road is something that's regulated by Wayne County. When they apply for permits to connect to the road, the county will look at what they're doing. The purpose of the Natural Beauty Road ordinance is to minimize vegetation removal within the right-of-way. In this particular case, we might have an opportunity to improve the vegetation in the right-of-way depending on the type of development that they bring in. So at this point, we don't know until we have a development plan, and that's not something that we directly deal with, since that's really work within the right-of-way and how the county manages that.
Okay, so that's a major concern of the community, and we're not really getting any answers, I see.
We don't
Well,
have
there's-
any answers until we have a plan. So
There's
right
no
now, we're
plan.
not at that stage of development, so.
When do we expect to have a plan, gentlemen? From the
Sure.
building community?
Sir, okay, if you would, go to the dais, please, and the microphone.
Thank you. I'm
Mark?
Mike Knowles
Okay.
with Diffin Umlor, representing Pulte Homes in this rezoning. Sorry I didn't respond directly to your question. I was trying to just follow the format of the public hearing. We intend to submit our plan once we're through the zoning process. We still have to go to first reading and second reading at the Township Board. We're in the process of developing the plan right now. Our intent is this particular piece of property that you're asking about is just under 15 acres. The assembly of all of the parcels is about 36 acres. We intend to submit a plan consistent with the master plan, 1 unit per acre, so a 36-unit residential plan with lots that are 100 to 110 feet wide, and also preserving the natural features of the site, saving as many of the trees as we can within the site, so that it's a large lot development with some beautiful vistas. That's the intent of our plan. We have some preliminary plans. I'd be happy to show them to you after the meeting. We're not here for that tonight, but more than happy to kind of walk you through what our thoughts are on that.
Thank you, thank you. And just a note of information here. When we go through this process, and it is a process, all we're doing is evaluating certain criteria of properties, and we try to follow the master plan. And the master plan is updated at least every 5 years by this body and approved by the board of directors. And this particular request does, in fact, go along with that master plan. It's not something that we're springing all of a sudden or anything like this. It just has to be requested, however, because there's no need to make the official change unless it's requested. But it is within the boundaries of the master planning, just so that you know. We're not, going to a higher density or anything like that. But this is why you are eligible to come in and talk to this, because it does require public hearings, and it does require board interaction, and it's not a one-time deal. One meeting doesn't get this done. So just to let you know that. Okay, anyone else want to make comment Okay, we'll stay with the first row. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Junie Morrow, and I live just north of the property, Eric Krupp's property. My neighbor to the south of us has farm animals. How will that, if that is changed, how is that going to affect my neighbors and possibly myself and my husband?
If you want
It
to
doesn't
answer that.
impact property that they don't own or control.
Okay.
The property to the north is zoned, residential. The farm animals that they may have may be non-conforming. They may have had them there before it was rezoned. I'm not sure which, are you on Partridge Circle or are you further north?
All Partridge Circle now.
I mean, that's a private road, those are all large lots. There may have been farm animals on it before it was split. So, I mean, those, can continue to exist, under the code.
Just north of Krupp's place, my neighbor next to us, they have 4 acres, and there's 1 acre in the front of them. And the same with our property. We have 4 acres and a home, another acre.
Right, when we get plans, we'll have the developer with Pulte meet with the surrounding property owners to basically coordinate with you on what the plans are. So, I mean, they probably are, as Mr. Knowles suggested, doing a cluster-type development, so they're not doing full acre lots, but they're trying to preserve a lot of the natural areas and a common space, so there should be some type of buffer accommodated between any of the backs of lots and any other property line.
When we moved out here in '91, there was a neighborhood association, and we all came together as a group to go for that natural beauty road. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt, like it is right now, because it's a mess. But the beauty of it is just outstanding. I would
Okay.
hate to lose that.
I certainly understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Second row, yes.
I'll start out. My name is Pam Mincher. My address is 8869 Ridge Road. I do not live in Canton Township. I live in Plymouth Township. But I am here as one of the older residents of the area. And when this woman spoke about the Natural Beauty Road status, I felt compelled to come tonight. We've lived in our house on Ridge Road, and we are the first house north of Joy, so we can wave at Canton Township across Joy Road. We've lived there almost 50 years. We moved there because it was a lovely part of the area. There was a very active Northwest Canton Homeowners Association, and because of their hard work and the support of people in Plymouth Township who were not very supported by our government when we went for our little quarter mile, we worked very hard to have that natural beauty road status. And yes, we do have dirt roads, but we've got the trees. And just to give you a little history, what happens when a subdivision comes in? Across the street from us is a subdivision that was farmland when we moved there. The builder was Bonadeo. We did not have natural beauty road status. And when he came up with his plan, we could see that not only were there going to be roads out onto Ridge, out to Joy, out to Ann Arbor Road, but because of that, anytime you have a road, you have the county at the time required a 50-foot clearance, which meant all those trees gone. Not only that, but the sidewalks, which then were required, meant the whole line of trees went down. Luckily, in Plymouth Township, we had an excellent planner at the time, Jim Anowitz, and he met with a few residents out there. We were able to talk to Mr. Bonadeo, have him move his sidewalks, the utilities, everything inside the tree line. They took away the road that was going to come out to Ridge from the subdivision. They completely took that out. And because of that, we still have the tree line.
Okay, all right.
I can see that there's not that much frontage on Ridge Road, but I totally sympathize with anyone that lives close to that area, because I couldn't believe coming up Ridge Road from Ford Road the other day. I left my granddaughter at the pool and drove up, and where are these 200 apartments all of a sudden? They're just there. And But that's not Natural Beauty Road. Natural Beauty Road starts on Ridge from north of Warren up to Joy, and then either side on Joy. It's just, it's a unique part of the township. You're never going to get that back. And I just hope you can keep the low density, and I would hope you would leave the zoning as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next. Yes.
Hi, my name is Linda Brakey. I'm at 7835 Ridge, which means I am the property right on top of where it says Partridge Circle. I just wondered, I know we're talking about the Krupp property tonight. I just wondered if I could get some clarification as to what properties have been sold into this development already, and if those properties are R1.
All the properties, Linda, or the property is the two properties on the corner, that was the church property, and the property north of that, which was a private road. So it'd be those three properties plus the Krupp property.
Okay, so past who's been sold.
Well, it's under contract, yeah.
Can't stop progress, huh?
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sally Mitchell. I'm at 48575 Joy. And those properties, have they already been rezoned then to R1?
Well, if you look at
Because
the,
when I looked at the site before, it said that those properties were RR. So,
everything around it, you can see where the R1 is and where the line for the RR is.
okay.
So the Krupp property is the highlighted property. You can see all the properties around it are zoned R1 except for the up to the east of Ridge Road, north of Partridge Circle, and the property down on Warren Road next to Heron Ridge.
Right, so the master plan, though, I guess I'm confused because it does say R1, but that area is RR, and there are other RR properties.
Right, because the RR is the historical zoning. The master plan allows up to 1 unit per acre in that area. Not all of the property's been rezoned, so that's what they're trying to do, is they're now trying to take this property, which is for sale, that was never ever rezoned for any purpose, and they're trying to get it zoned R1 so that they all have the same zoning on all of the property. So they're rezoning it in accordance with the master plan. The master plan is a long-range plan in terms of what the property's potential and what it can go to. So that doesn't mean that all of the property in Canton has been zoned that way yet. We don't automatically just rezone people's property until it's ready for development or ready for some type of change. So in this particular instance, the Krupps never rezoned the property for any reason. So at this point in time, there's the trust is selling the property to a home builder, and now they wish to rezone it so it's consistent with the zoning adjacent to it.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to caution, though, I do live on Joy Road, and there are two Pulte subdivisions that have gone up. And I'm concerned, too, because I walk down Ridge Road. I love it. It's a beautiful place. And I'm very concerned about the natural beauty road designation. And what's happened on Joy Road, Pulte, I mean, I know that Joy Road was rural at one time. It's now not. But Pulte has brought suburbia into our area, and I just caution you so you don't let that happen on Ridge Road. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Going back, this gentleman here? Okay.
My name is Donald Garlett. I live at 49651 Shenandoah Circle, which is north of the area, and I'm representing my neighbors, the homeowners group. So I really don't have any questions. I would just like to document our opposition to the rezoning and give you some reasons for not approving the rezoning. And I will say a famous Civil War general once said, "One good reason is always enough." I'll give you several good reasons, and I'll pass it out to you. First of all, a sale of property is not a compelling reason for rezoning property, as there's no underlying conditions are changed with a property sale. In fact, changing a classification because of a sale is the essence of an arbitrary and capricious action. There's no change in what's there. Secondly, placing more subdivisions in this area of the township will result in more traffic on the Natural Beauty Road, which will physically and environmentally degrade the area. You've heard people talk already about the Natural Beauty Road. There are only 3 miles of Natural Beauty Roads in Wayne County. There are only 200 in the entire state, and we don't want to see those degraded. And the Natural Beauty Roads result in a special area that's loved by the residents, you've heard that already, and are a major reason to live here. Third, we'll see more traffic, and we'll see more road deterioration. Ridge Road in particular between Warren and Joy has substandard material. I've talked to the township numerous times about that, and it already is not being maintained properly. It's only going to get worse. I will tell you this is a general problem. We already have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on that stretch of Ridge Road. It's violated continuously. Now, the police, I've talked to them, they do a good job when they're up there. They can't be up there all the time. I've actually seen them issue 3 tickets in 15 minutes. They could issue tickets all day. But more traffic, more speeding. And that's bad for the people who walk the road, ride the road, etc. And I might add the cross-country team from the high school. I'd like to have someone ask or answer this question. Why do the wants of a developer that is an out-of-state corporation dominate over the wishes of citizens, taxpayers, voters, and residents of an area? Property development is a one-time event while the residents are committed to the area. I'm a 38-year resident of Canton, and one neighbor on Shenandoah Circle has lived in Canton since the 1940s when he was brought home from the hospital. So I would really like somebody to explain how that can predominate over my wishes. Canton needs to recognize the Valley of Greenbelts and foliage if it wants to be a leading community. Rezoning to permit more development negates that, subverts it. Another subdivision will result in more subdivision lawns with increased use of chemicals in the area. Most of us are on wells and septic tanks. We don't want the area environmentally degraded. I'm almost through. A proposal for a zoning change and more houses in a subdivision do not take a holistic view of the burden on the township and area. With all due respect to our planning commission or planner, more houses result in more infrastructure, more police, more road maintenance, increased fire department requirements, and more school requirements. This is going to be borne by all the taxpayers. And I'm quite sure that the developer will not be paying for more teachers nor for the other services. I will. The people in this room will. The electrical grid in the area is already overburdened with frequent outages. In fact, I could see DTE trucks and workers on Shenandoah Circle today, January 7th. The impact of wildlife and their possible displacement needs to be considered. And that's another environmental concern of the people in the area. So, concluding, we're not suggesting that the sale of property be denied. We're merely requesting that there be no change to zoning so our area, as much as possible, can retain its natural beauty and character. A potential sale is not a compelling reason to change the zoning classification. To reiterate again from that famous Civil War general, one good reason is always enough. I've given you at least 9.
Thank you.
Who do I give this to? Chair?
I'll take them. Thank you. And thank you for your comments.
Greg, can I give that, can I have a
Pardon?
copy of that for the recording secretary?
Yes. Mhm. In fact, I don't know how many are here.
We don't all need one.
You could have passed one that way. You could take the rest of them. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I didn't get one. Yeah, you got Awesome. Okay, next comment. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Mike Hammerberg, and I live at 8989 Ridge Road in Plymouth Township, down the street from Pam. So I've lived in the area 40 years, and 27 years ago, I moved to Ridge Road to get out in the country. And when I bought this house, I got a horse with it. I used to ride my horse down to McClumph, down to the cemetery there on Jide Road, and a lot has changed in the last 27 years. But like other people have pointed out, the traffic has just grown astronomically over the past 27 years. And I can't see how changing this to single-family home zoning is going to help the traffic at all. Just like people have pointed out, it's just going to be a burden on everybody. Now, where I live, there is no speed limit, and people drive 55, and they don't have to get ticketed. So I get a tremendous amount of road dust. Now, last summer wasn't too bad, but the summer before last, we couldn't go out in our backyard because it was so bad. And doing this rezoning is just going to make the dust for me a lot worse. And I just hope that you have some pity on somebody from Plymouth Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want these in here?
Yes, please.
You can leave them on the...
They're right there in the
Yeah, you
back.
can just leave them right there.
Right there, yeah.
Next, all right, come on up.
Again, my name is Judy Moore, and I'm at 7755 North Ridge Road, Partridge Circle. One thing when we moved out there, that was country to us, and it was beautiful. And we could walk up and down Ridge Road every night and feel safe. You cannot do that now. You're taking your life in your own hands if you're trying to walk that road. It's so bad. People fly through there, and I've gone to the police quite a few times and talked about my concerns. 2 of my neighbors' cars have been hit on that road, and it's dangerous to actually walk that road, especially the condition that it's in right now. The properties behind us, which is still Wayne County, well, they wanted to build a huge subdivision back there also. We put them off as an association for at least 10 years. When they started building in there, that 280 acres was all kinds of wildlife. The number of animals, deer, that were displaced from that was sad. You could see them sometimes by the side of the road. My husband seen one that tried to jump the fence at the cemetery, was impaled in it. And it's horrible. So, we have to really consider the wildlife and what we want to keep. The DNR, I asked them, I called them, can you please get them and take them up north? He said, all we will do is shoot them. He said, that's all we can do. Now, when they were going to build a church on the corner, Wayne County said that they could not make an entrance off of Ridge Road. It had to come off of Warren.
No, they actually said it couldn't come off of Warren. They made them come off of Ridge. It was the other way around.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The county wouldn't give them an access onto Warren Road due to the proximity of the corner of their driveway to the corner. They made them come off of Ridge. The last plan approval we had
Okay, then I
was to
missed
come
that.
off of Ridge Road.
So there, you're talking sewers, sewer lines, all of that kind of stuff, which is going to totally take out that huge section that is still natural that we have left in Wayne County. And it's going to continue. We've got, when we first moved out there, on the east side of Ridge Road between Warren and what's Andover Court now was farmland. Huge subdivisions in there. We're covered with subdivisions all over the place. I mean, are they trying to run us out? It's so hard to give up something that you've dreamed about and lived with and just meant so much to you, your children, your grandchildren, and to see something, not that I don't want Eric to sell his property, that's not the point. I would just really hate to see that area destroyed.
Thank you.
Another sub.
Thank you. Okay. If you want to leave your, yep, okay. Next, this lady back here.
Hello, my name is Lee Schwartz, and I am new to the area. I live at 8745 North Ridge Road, right at the corner of Joy and Ridge Road. And we just moved in this year, so although I'm not a 30-year resident of Canton Township, I lived in Plymouth before. We chose to come here because of how beautiful it is. You know, we're so close to everything, but Ridge Road is a natural beauty road. Joy Road, where in front of my home, is a natural beauty road. It's absolutely beautiful, and the idea of them rezoning. I have never been to a planning meeting in my life, and I don't know about this master plan, but I will look it up now that I'm a resident of Canton, because it is concerning to me that the master plan is to rezone a lot of maybe these properties close to me, which this is right down the street from me, and make more houses and more houses. It's a beautiful place. I see deer in my yard every day, every single day. And the idea that you're already talking about selling this land and just rezoning it. Everybody has a right to sell their property, but to have the township consider rezoning it to a multi-unit location in this place where the whole street is not like that. I mean, I understand that R1 is there and R1 is there, and those are multi-locations, but along Ridge Road, it's not like that. They're all single-family, multi-acre properties, and it's the reason why I moved here. So I just had to voice, I wasn't going to speak, but I just had to voice, as a new resident here, and the reason why I came to Canton, it's already starting to take that away. So it frightens me. And I know no decisions have been made with the property, but once you rezone it, that's in the master plan. That's what you guys are already talking about. So if it's in the master plan, the idea would be put more homes in. So I'd just like to not see that happen.
Thank you.
I didn't fill this out, so I'll do it and then leave it.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Anyone else? Yes, sir, come on up.
My name is Dick Dion. I live at 50360 Warren Road. Many of you have seen me at these meetings in the past, and I know I will be coming to meetings in probably the fairly near future. My purpose in speaking tonight is to address several audiences: the developer, planning commission, neighbors. I want to assure you that we have the ability to consider the development that will be proposed. We have the ability to work with the developer to express our point of view, our needs, our concerns for the neighborhood. Several years ago, when the Church of Jesus Christ proposed building an edifice at the corner of Warren and Ridge, a few of us had the opportunity to work with them. We explained our concerns. We explained the importance of the natural beauty road. We were reasonable. They understood. our concerns, and they were agreeable to working with us. I know this can happen in this development as well. It must happen, and I hope we can work with the developers' representatives to work out a resolution that will be in the interest of everyone. It was, in fact, I think it is possible to enhance the natural Beauty Road stretch that would be affected by this proposal. So there are things that can be done. We had a good experience last year, or in the past 2 years, of the township working with DTE after some unfortunate trimming on Jide Road. That ended up with something very positive happening. So I think that we can work together, we can make something good come out of this, we can preserve what we hold so dear, what we treasure. And you can be assured that I will be happy, eager to work with everybody on this. Thank you, and congratulations, Angela. Best wishes to you.
Thank you very much for that. And I want to add that in all my years of being on the commission, we have never disregarded those aspects that have been brought up here tonight. We have always, on this panel and through the planning department and with the developers, worked towards those ends to help people really enjoy Canton even more. I know that change is frightening sometimes, especially when you've lived with things in a certain way for a long time. But respecting property owners' rights, which we try to do, we try to work within all those criteria and the goals set forth. Sometimes it's not so easy. But I do thank you, Mr. Diane, for your comments on that. And should this go forward, we would urge all development, and we always do, to contact the nearby people and work with them. This is a process. This isn't something that bing, bang, bong, it's done. And they want to make people happy too. And you can play a very important role in that entire process. So I'll leave it at that and just say that we hope that should this go forward, this be a very successful project for Canton. Is what we're aiming for. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Richard Rao, 7735 Ridge Road. I own the lot just to the north of subject property. I have the longest common boundary of anybody concerning this situation, and I probably have the most to lose if things don't work out well. We moved here in 1991, and the reason we moved here is because we were in a subdivision. We wanted to go to a rural area where we could have animals and where we could have trees and where we could have country and so forth. We wanted to still stay in Canton, and we found that this area probably was one of the most historic and most, on-urban places that we could find in Canton. There was hardly any traffic when we first came here. Pheasant Ridge wasn't here, Hampton Ridge wasn't. It was just totally country. Warren Road was completely dirt road. And so we had it good for so many years. And we petitioned the township, and they allowed us to bring 5 stables. In other words, we're allowed to have 5 horses or other large animals or other things. We have llamas right now. We have chickens. We have roosters that crow that might bother neighbors if they get too close. But anyway, we've been enjoying it there. And even though our site is rated R1, as are so many, the reason for that change, according to the way I understand it, is so that the people that own the property could sell off the front acre to somebody so they could build along Ridge Road. But our house is on 4 acres. The people to the north of us, their house, one house is on 4 acres. The house beyond that, one house is on 5 acres. The house beyond that, going to the north, just up near Jide Road, is a large house, and I think it's on more than 5 acres. So just 15 acres? Okay. So just because it's zoned R1, it doesn't mean that, you know, all of the surrounding area there are 1 house per acre. And I've seen developers in the past, if they want to come in and put 1 house per 2, 3, 4 acres, fine. But to do 1 house per acre and have it right across the fence line from me, it may cause problems. There's a lot of trees out there, phenomenal number of trees, hundreds of trees. And I would hate to see, and I've seen it before, developers go in and they completely do away with all vegetation, all trees, and they start over. And we've never taken a tree out of our lot, a living tree. Now, when the wind blows a tree over, or we have elms that die, we've had them taken out. But more often than not, we usually replace those trees with other trees. In fact, last year, 2018, we planted 50 trees on our lot because we like the country atmosphere. And we like the trees. We like the wildlife. We like the birds and everything that goes with it. And we've been enjoying it. So I just don't want to see that area lose its country flavor. People were talking about the traffic on Ridge Road. When we first went out there at the beginning of the 90s, we would take our llamas for a walk up and down Ridge Road. Sometimes we would stand there for 5, 10 minutes for a car to come by and say, what kind of animal is that? We can't do that anymore. The traffic is phenomenal. It's not only just because of Ridge, but things that have happened down near Ford Road, the Academy, other things. The traffic is horrendous. It's terrible. Sometimes when I get out to the end of my road, I have to stand there maybe for 2 or 3 cars to go by to walk across the street to get my mail. And then I get the mail, and then before I can come back again, there's another car coming by. And that's usually during rush hour. It's not all the time, but it's usually during that time. So anyway, what I'm saying is I would like to, I'm not against these people selling their property. Usually when individuals buy a property, they'll go in there and they'll build a house around around the trees. They won't tear the trees out. They'll put the house in such a way that to, you know, accommodate the existing landscaping. When a developer goes in, what he does is just tear everything out. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. And I really don't want that to happen in our situation.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you so much for
I
your
think
comments.
adversely also it would affect the value of our property, which is another consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that was it, right?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to close the public hearing.
We've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Akon. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're going to start down at this end of the commission. Commissioner Akon, do you have any comments on this proposal?
I do not, thank you.
Bennett? Not right now. Ooh, Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yeah, I had just a couple questions. Jeff, I want to really thank you for giving us in our packet a rezoning criteria. I've been to the Planning Commission class, but I'm not an expert on it all, and so getting this was very helpful. The number 10 question on there, where it says, if rezoning is requested, what is the impact on the township infrastructure? And then I see under the motions, it would be pursuant to the fact-finding of that. When does that happen, and how does that work out?
Well, you know, they're not, from a zoning standpoint, they're not asking for more than the master plan anticipates as future development. So essentially, they're consistent with the master plan. The township basically sets a maximum density of 1 per acre for the area. So they're not asking for anything more than what their neighbors have in terms of, zoning and what the potential that zoning allows. The actual traffic impact will be evaluated when the actual site plan comes in. They'll evaluate water and sewer service to the project, just like the subdivision across the street. They probably have water and sewer connections to Hampton Ridge to the west. They probably have connections to water and sewer from Pheasant Ridge to the east. I'm not sure where the water and sewer is, along Warren and Ridge Road, but they'll have to figure that out as part of their development plan. So we'll evaluate the actual infrastructure needs for whatever they plan on doing at that point in time.
Okay, so at that point, there's a
As part of a
conversation.
preliminary plan, right? So I would expect in this particular case, if it's all rezoned and consolidated into one property, they'll come in with a plan development, which will allow the clustering of that, and at that time, we'll require a traffic evaluation done. In this particular case, the volumes of the traffic probably will require that segment of road up to their intersection or up to their driveway to be paved. The driveway will probably be closer to where it'll probably be south of the driveway location to the east. It'll probably be closer to Warren Road than it will be further north. But there is a substantial amount of school traffic that heads up Ridge Road to Joy Road every day. The school buses use that route to go to the high school. We know that, the township has made a commitment with the county to pave Ridge Road south of Warren Road. So we know that there's going to be a continued amount of pressure on Ridge Road regardless of what they do here. There's a traffic issue on Ridge Road. So we might be able to help with the condition of a portion of Ridge Road through a plan development in this particular case. We might be able to enhance the natural beauty roads, by asking the developer to plant, native trees within the right-of-way or along the edge of the right-of-way area in front of their development. This portion of Ridge Road isn't heavily forested along the edge of the road, so we might be able to enhance that and improve the natural beauty of this portion of Ridge Road as part of that. We don't have sidewalks on the east side of Ridge Road. That's something the developer could ask for, would be a waiver of sidewalks, which would then minimize the need to clear vegetation out of Ridge Road and keeping it more natural. So that would be something that I would expect that we would have a discussion with them about in terms of, what's the appropriate treatment along Ridge Road for this particular development. But again, those are all things that we would look at a later point in time. But I think since the residents all brought them up, the residents now have heard what's important to the residents, and then we can that's why the public hearing is important, because the staff, you, and the developers all hear what's important to the residents in the area at this stage of the process.
And then I just had one other question. You mentioned that the master plan is looked at every 5 years, is that?
And we
is
just
that what you said?
updated the master plan in 2017. So beginning of last year was when it was updated. So this area has been up to R1 for the past 25 years or so. So
Well,
this isn't,
It feels like from a lot of what I heard from everybody saying, they wanted to keep Canton more of a rural area. It sounds like being a part of that next time of looking at the master plan would be a chance to get involved in that.
right. I mean, we've got, most of the large, developable pieces in this area have been picked up. And, this is one of these pieces where you've got a land consolidation of 3 or 4 larger pieces. So we don't, the narrow pieces that Mr. Rao and, his residents further north, those were all very, narrow, deep pieces. At some point, somebody may come in and try to consolidate those and do a small development. That's something that we can't control. That's only something that the market can control.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Perkins?
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Zuber?
We hear these kinds of statements pretty much every time we're asked to consider a new development in an area which is surrounded by people who already live there. And I want to assure everybody, we do listen to what you say, but there's a lot of what was said we can't really consider when we're granting a zoning change like this, like the wildlife and things like that. We're not able to take that into account, right?
That's not part of the criteria for rezoning. That's
Right. We have a specific list of criteria that we're supposed to use as a guideline for when we grant these sort of variances and, or changes to the zoning designation. So it's always challenging for us because as humans, as your neighbors, we hear what you're saying, but as planning commission members, we are limited to what we can actually consider when we're considering a proposal like this. And traffic, you know, things like I guess the way to put it is we can't tell a developer, you know, I'm sorry, but the property across the street from yours and behind yours was already developed as a planned unit development with 1 unit per acre, or at least that's kind of what it looks like on the map. But you can't do that because traffic is, you know, they could do it, but you can't because there's already too much traffic. I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed. And
Okay.
they are actually proposing 1 unit per acre is what I wrote down.
Right, the R1 is 1 per acre. Under standard development, it would require 1 acre lots. Under non-standard development, or a cluster development, they cannot exceed 1 per acre maximum. So they still can't exceed, regardless of what type of development they do, whether it's standard R1, you know, subdivision with 1 acre lots, or a cluster development with smaller lots, they still cannot exceed 1 unit per acre. The master plan has a maximum density that they cannot exceed, and that's the upper limit, is 1 per acre, so.
So it would be arbitrary and capricious for us to tell Pulte that they can't develop this property according to the master plan, so.
Or even if Mr. Krupp came in and wanted to do his own project, regardless of
Exactly.
whether he was selling it, he has the right, he would have the right on his own to come in and do the same thing on his property on his 15 acres, so.
Kind of feel stuck, so, you know.
Commissioner Graham Hudek?
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Jeff, in the packet you had the master plan, a section of it. Could you put that up? Is that possible, just to explain before I ask some questions? So everybody can see why. Is that okay?
So, you know, up in the northwest part of the township, everything in yellow is very low-density residential, up to 1 unit per acre. So that's essentially, you know, it's not all, as I mentioned before, it's not all zoned that way yet, because a lot of people have larger pieces of property that have their house on it, and they haven't rezoned it for any reason, or needed to split it, or divide it, or put a private road in with other lots. So so a lot of that is historical zoning that's been there since the 50s, so.
You can see the yellow areas where we're looking, and that's 1 unit per acre. And as Jeff said, if anybody in that area wanted to sell their property or develop themselves, they are allowed by this plan to do that. And that's what we're being asked to look at tonight. Are we following this master plan by the request that's before us?
And you're also looking at the surrounding property zoning. You're also looking at the general land use patterns in the area in terms of what's already been developed and how that fits in terms of compatibility.
And I think it can also be added that the process that the planning department and commission go through along with the trustees is under the scrutiny of, just like this, public hearings. These are things that the long-range planning have taken place, and it's a kind of an animal that changes with time and needs of the community, et cetera, and we do take public input at those times for developing the master plan. And then that gives us the guideline, or just a kind of like a Bible, if you will, that says, okay, if we were going to change, we could change to that, because that was in the master plan. Anything beyond that then has to really be evaluated differently, because we have not anticipated that. So what we're about tonight is something anticipated and was planned for in the master planning process. And whenever we go through that again, you're all invited to come out and impact that.
You also have the ability to look at the master plan. You can go meet with Jeff at any time. I
It's
don't
on,
know,
the
is this
master plan's online.
It's online. If you have questions, you can ask. What, in terms of the tree distance from the road, is for a natural beauty road, do you know if there's a certain distance a tree has to be from the road? Is that one of the designations, or no?
There's some general criteria the county uses for basically disturbance within the right-of-way. The purpose of the Natural Beauty Road Ordinance and the designation is to help the county provide guidelines to the county when working with utilities, when working with developers, working with any work within the right-of-way, is to minimize vegetation removal that doesn't necessarily need to be removed otherwise. I mean, as a road agency, the county doesn't like big trees in the road right-of-way from a liability standpoint. That's why this designation provides some level of protection, so it requires some additional review by the county. So that's what I'm saying, is as we go through this process, we need to look at this area of Ridge Road. Normally, we would require sidewalks. In this particular case, I'm probably going to recommend that we waive sidewalk requirements in this area of Ridge Road. We don't have any sidewalks on the other side. Sidewalks would be a great disturbance to the right-of-way in this area. I mean, they're going to have to make sure that the road drains. If they have to do some road improvements from a traffic standpoint, you know, they might have to do some drainage work. But that isn't, but again, we're going to look at how that can be minimized as part of the Natural Beauty Road evaluation.
And also, you had talked about paving that road. I mean, we already have traffic, as a lot of the residents said. So paving, you can still be a natural beauty road if you have some of it paved. Is that correct? Or
Right. Yeah, the Natural Beauty Road doesn't say the road can't or, you know, shouldn't be paved. It has to do with protection of the vegetation within the right-of-way area and to minimize disturbance to that vegetation.
And Canton does have a tree vegetation ordinance, as many have read about lately.
But that
Also-
doesn't impact the areas in the right-of-way. So that's why the Natural Beauty Road ordinance would have the county evaluate that within the right-of-way. Our ordinance doesn't impact anything in the right-of-way because
No.
that's under control of the county,
Just on the property.
just on the property
Correct.
itself, that's right.
And as Mr. Dion said, many of our residents do work with the developers, and that's really important. He said you can enhance things, and he said they did work with the church, and that's really important. What happens is the developer usually will have meetings and have you come in, show you what they're thinking, you give your input, and we've seen a lot of good results from that. And so I think we can enhance some things also. Thank you.
Commissioner Acharya?
Thank you. One of the issues, the concerns raised was about the additional burden on infrastructure that might happen with new homes coming in, and there was a concern raised by one of the residents about the taxpayers bearing the burden on the increased infrastructure. But the other point of view is also that you're expanding the taxpayer base, because new homes would mean that the new residents would also bring in additional taxes, and they'll pay their fair share. So that concern is not really a valid concern, because the new residents are also going to be taxpayers. You know, it's not a one-time responsibility of the developer. But in general, most of the concerns raised were genuine, and we can see the impact, and it's really a tough call, and would have to have a very balanced view and look at the master plan and decide, deep into the soul, what's the right thing to do. And I think we'll make a decision based on that. Thank you.
I myself, I certainly concur with a lot of the comments that were made. When my wife and I came here back in '89, Canton Center was like the edge of civilization. If you went west of Canton Center, you were in farm country. That was the way it was. And Julian's Party Store was the last place you could get beer before Ann Arbor. But that goes back a ways. And things have changed, and our economy's changed, and people's desires have changed. This used to be a big farming community, the sweet corn capital, right? A lot of those farms ended up being sold, and the next generation didn't want to be farmers, and so the rural residential designation ended up changing, and then it became marketable. And respecting property owners' rights, and I'm sure you'll all appreciate that, we have a hard job up here because we've got to mix that with planning. And without planning, you don't get anything that is good for the community. And fortunately for us, we do have a good planning department, and I've worked with a lot of good planners on the Planning Commission, and we are where we are today. I'm okay with this change simply because we did plan for this, and I don't see any reason why that would not happen. So with that, do I hear a motion?
Yes. I move to recommend approval of the request to rezone the subject parcel, tax parcel 024-99-0006-708, from RR, Rural Residential District, to R1, Single Family Residential District.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and a support by Commissioner Okon. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Okon?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham Hudak?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green.
Yes. And as we said earlier, this is a process. And Jeff, what's the next stage?
Okay,
on this?
Your vote is a recommendation to the Township Board to amend the zoning map. This needs 2 hearings, 2 readings at the board level. Likely, the first reading will be the 22nd of this month at the Township Board level, and the second reading in February.
Okay, and obviously, you are welcome to go to those public meetings as well. So, again, this is a process, and we do need your input. So, thank you very much. The next agenda item, I'll wait till things kind of settle down a little bit. Thank you. The next agenda item is the Tara's Toddler Time, where we're considering a special land use for group child care home for property which is located south of Warren between Sheldon and Morton Taylor. Jeff, could you give us more detail?
Yes, the project sponsor, Ms. Towler, is proposing a group daycare home and a personal residence at the corner of Epping Court and Epping Drive. She presently has a license for a family daycare home at the location, which allows for up to 6 children, which is a permitted use. Anything other than a family daycare home under our code is a special land use. Group daycare homes under the state license allows up to 12 children. The special land use criteria for consideration are essentially established by the state of Michigan, so we're a little bit preempted in terms of applying our normal requirements for special land use. They've provided a background of the state criteria and the code for you in terms of separation from other uses, fencing for the play area around the yard. The home has to maintain consistency with the visible character of the neighborhood. They have to provide hours of operation. I think one document said 8 to 5 and one said 8 to 6. So we can get clarification from Ms. Towler on the actual hours of operation. The only sign permitted by our zoning code is one non-illuminated nameplate on the wall of the building, not more than 10 square feet in area that's attached to the wall of the house. I think there's a typo there in my write-up. They have to provide information relative to off-street parking for employees, in terms of where they're going to park and how they're going to stage drop-off. So there's some responses from Ms. Towler in your packet relative to those items. And in this particular case, probably in a single-family neighborhood, one reason why a family daycare home is permitted is essentially that's something that can be done with the residents of the home. It doesn't require anybody from the outside to come in and help take care of the children, and the traffic generation is not going to be inconsistent with the traffic in the neighborhood. This one essentially could, basically double the normal amount of traffic and drop off in the morning and evening. Ms. Towler indicated that she expects 2 to 3 additional trips per day based on the number of additional families anticipated. If you had 6 additional kids with 6 additional parents, that could be up to 6 depending on the nature and the consistent, in terms of who her clients are at that point. We would recommend approval of the request for the special land use as requested, limited to the hours of operation as provided in the application, Monday through Friday, and subject to obtaining any of the applicable building permits for any alterations that she needs to make. And that may be required for the use in the state license. For example, if she uses the basement for a portion of the group daycare home, there are certain egress and access requirements that they need to do, and those may require building permits to accommodate those. So Ms. Towler is here to explain exactly the nature of the use and to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, do I hear a motion to open the public hearing on this?
So moved.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Graham Hudak this time, and support. Okay, a couple different commissioners
Not a
involved here.
competition.
No, I know.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are open. Any comments on this project from the public? Or first of all, project
Ms. Towler, would you like to get up and
Like to say
address the
something?
Planning Commission?
I'm kind of, I wish more people didn't walk out. I wanted to talk. So I think the biggest confusion is, the biggest concern is about traffic. The reason I want to expand to 12 is because I'm having to let my families go when they want to expand their own families. Finding childcare in Canton, I don't know if any of you have children or young children, remember, it's hard because the state puts such strict ratios. Under 2.5 years old, it's 1 to 4 in a center, and I get 2 under 18 months and 2 under 2.5. So I grow with these families, and when they want to expand, moms literally have made the choice to not go back to work and to take on that financial burden because they don't want to trust anybody else with their kid. Like, I had a set of twins with me, and they got pregnant again, and the mom's like, I couldn't because the twins were under 2, I couldn't take them on. So the traffic realistically is not 6 more because there's 6 more children. It's realistically 2 or 3 more cars a day, honestly. I also do school drop-off. All of my families are in Canton. Every family I have is in Canton. They're within a 2-mile radius. Sometimes when I do school pickup for my own children, I drop their kids off for them. So I feel like the biggest concern is traffic, and honestly, realistically, if you were to ask any of my neighbors, they don't even know I have a daycare. And right now I have, with part-time schedules, I have 13 families enrolled. Hours of operation, I say 8 to 5 because that's my preferred schedule, but being an in-home daycare, you have to have the flexibility for running late, maybe an appointment, maybe stopping for groceries, things happen. So 8 to 6 would be more realistic just to allow my families that flexibility in the case of an emergency or something. I would hate to have 8 to 5 as my formal hours and something happens, so I kind of would just like to have that cushion there for that. So 8 to 6, more realistic with the hours. I don't work weekends. I have 3 kids of my own, so there's no weekend. There's no extra holiday traffic. I'm closed on the holidays. It's just a straight 8 to 5.
Thank you. One quick question. Did you have to get any kind of approval from your homeowners association, or do you need to get approval from this?
I did not. I'm right Windermere. No, I'm in Wilshire. I moved from Windermere last year.
There's no covenants and
Yeah,
restrictions for the subdivision.
there's no homeowners
Okay,
association.
there's no conflict there?
No.
Okay, all right. I know that some bylaws prohibit having businesses in homes.
Right,
And
yeah.
it's like that. Any comments from the audience? Comments, questions, concerns, anything?
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Yes. Okay, so we have a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Okan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to start down at this end. Commissioner Acharya.
Yes.
Yeah.
No questions.
No questions. I'm sorry if I woke you up. No, I'm kidding you.
He was ready to
Commissioner
follow
Graham
us.
Hudak.
So I was just wondering, you've been doing this for a while. Have you ever run into a neighbor saying, you know, I'm trying to get out in the morning and the cars are blocking me? I mean, has there ever been an instance where you've had to work with a neighbor over something because of being at
No,
childcare?
honestly, never. I ask parents, everybody has a contracted drop-off time, and I'm a stickler. Like, I am a stickler for schedule. With 6 infants and toddlers, I have to be. They have a 15-minute window to drop off. Everybody drops off between 8 o'clock and 8:15. If you're 8 to 8:15, that's when you need to drop off unless you give me advance notice. So I'm really strict when it comes to that, and I also let them know there's no parking on the street. They all park in the driveway. So I've never, and if I see them even pull up on the street, I'm like, you need to be in the driveway, because my vehicle is, I've become an expert at having those difficult, like, blunt conversations, like, you need to be in the driveway, that's how this works. So I've never honestly had an issue with neighbors. Even I just moved a year ago from across Sheldon, and none of my neighbors had an issue with the parking or any issues with the daycare.
So your neighbors know about the daycare center
They do,
that's
yeah.
around you?
Yeah, when I
Okay.
moved and introduced myself, they were like, you got a lot of kids. I'm like, they're not all mine. So, and they only know that because we go outside a lot on walks. So other than that, I mean, I've had neighbors say, I didn't know you had a daycare, and I've been there for 1.5 years now. But the last house I was in for 6 years, and they didn't have any concerns.
So you have to bring in extra people also if you have these?
My mom lives with me, and my sister comes and visits, so she works as my assistant. But my mom would be my assistant caregiver, and she lives with me. So she's not paid, she just helps.
So the state, basically you have to update your license also, correct?
I have to get zoning approval and send in an application, but other than that, I think my consultant just approves it. I actually emailed her over the weekend, and she said it's just an application and zoning approval.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Zuber?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Perkins?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
No, I have no questions, thank you.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you receive, if and when you receive approval, tell me the age ranges of the children you would have
That's
at any
man-
given, not if some are in school, the maximum children and their ages.
That's a tough question because a lot of my families are part-time, so on any given day, it could be different. So it's 2 under 18 months for a family, so it would double for a group. So it would be 4 under 18 months, 4 between the ages of 2.5 and 18 months, and 4 over the ages of 2.5. That doesn't count for related children. But I could also have 8 over the age of 18 months between 2.5, as long as none of them are infants. So it's kind of a chart you got. I mean, I do it in my head, but it's kind of a chart that you have to go by. So any given day, there's a demand for part-time families in this area simply because there's a lot of teachers, EMS workers, nurses, and honestly, being able to expand will allow me to more cater to their schedules because I can be more flexible and financially be able to afford it.
Okay. And you said your sister helps as a caregiver
Right,
as well?
she's approved by the state as an assistant caregiver.
Okay. And how old is she?
35.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Commissioner Ocon?
Just a quick question for you, Jeff. The special land use, is it tied to the applicant or the property? In other words, if she moves, does it go back? Does this special
Right.
land use go away?
It's tied to her as a license holder, so.
Okay, so if she moves out of that house, this special land use goes away?
That's correct, so.
Thank you.
Just one other quick question. You have a fenced yard. It has a privacy fence, about 5 feet or 6 feet or whatever, something like that. Oh, 7 feet? Okay. Are any of your neighbors' yards fenced? Or was yours an exception for your?
They're all fenced. No, it was fenced when I moved in. They're all
You
fenced.
have fences, okay. I
Yeah.
know some Canton neighborhoods don't allow fences. So.
Yeah, they're all
Okay,
fenced.
all right.
You still have the pool in the yard?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And the state regulations for daycare, I have the 4-foot barrier around it, and it stays locked during daycare hours, so it meets all of the state requirements for childcare.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all that I have, the questions that I had. Do I hear a motion entertained here?
I move to recommend approval of the request for special land use for a group daycare home on tax parcel number 03703-008400, which is also known as 7060 Epping Drive, limited to the hours of operation as provided in the application of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, subject to meeting all of the requirements of MCL 125.3205, and subject to obtaining any applicable building permits for interior alterations as may be required for the use and state license.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none and hearing? I'm sorry, yes.
As a mother of a young child, I can absolutely understand when you find a caregiver that takes excellent care of your child, and I can only imagine how they must have felt adding to their family and you not being able to take them on. So,
My wait list, half of them are coming back as soon as I get approved. Moms are going back
that's
to
wonderful.
work. So.
That's wonderful. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Ocon?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Ataria?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham Hudak?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. And the next step, Jeff?
The Township Board will look at the recommendation and make a final determination probably on January the 22nd.
Okay, thank you very much for coming to us. Our next item on the agenda is the Park Creek of Canton, where we're considering a preliminary PDD, for parcels located north of Getty's between Beck and Denton. Angela, could you give us more detail?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposal is for the Park Creek Preliminary Plan Development District located at the northwest corner of Beck and Getty's Road, as you see on the aerial photo there. The applicant proposes to locate 82 site condominiums and 84 detached condominiums, which are proposed to be active adult units, for a total of 166 residential units on approximately 89 acres. The property was previously part of the Charing Cross Plan Development District, and perhaps you, Commissioner Green, remember when that was approved and there were going to be apartments on the corner here, but that's since expired, so we're starting all over with this. Each plan development district is required to demonstrate definite benefit to the community. The applicant proposes to convey the approximate 10 acres at the corner of Beck and Getty's, the northwest corner, to the township as a public park. I believe that you were emailed a YouTube link that showed the sorts of equipment that the applicant proposes to provide as part of the community benefit for this project. Adult exercise equipment, picnic tables, the sewer and water leads, restrooms, and 10 gravel parking spaces are among the amenities planned. Sheet 7 of your concept plan and also Schedule A of the PD agreement that should have been in your packet outlines the improvements that the owner is proposing to make to the park. Since this is to be a public park, they have agreed to provide a public access easement over the road, allowing community members to come into the private road to access the park. And also, they are going to provide path and sidewalk connections through the park and through the development, and install sidewalk along Getty's Road and along Beck Road, proceeding north to connect with the existing sidewalk at the entrance to Charing Cross condominiums that will include completing the pedestrian crossing over Fowler Creek. Due to the presence of the creek on the site, much of the area is impacted by floodplains and regulated wetlands. And that really determined the configuration of the residential units on the site. They really have to avoid a lot of this area with their development, thus resulting in the smaller lot sizes, reduced setbacks that are included in the schedule of modifications. A modification to the township ordinance to maintain the 25-foot setback from the wetlands is being requested, and their proposal is to allow the DEQ through the permitting process to determine their location for development rather than holding hard and fast to the 25 feet that our ordinance requires. A traffic impact study was submitted to engineering services for peer review by our township consultant. There was a preliminary review, and the engineering department asked for more information regarding the models used for the traffic impact. That was provided to them on Friday, so we don't have an actual result back from that. Anything that you want to recommend this evening, we would like to be conditioned on having that traffic impact study completed and having the conversation at that time with the applicant as to what intersection improvements and such things would be required based on the results of that evaluation. Sheet 8 of the concept plan shows you the proposed colored elevations of the sorts of homes that MI Homes is proposing in the development. As you know, the Article 26 of the zoning ordinance requires at least 50% masonry on the homes. These homes do not meet that requirement. There isn't exactly, at this point, a percentage of brick proposed, but they are just requesting as a modification that it be reduced below the 50%. I would encourage you to review this and, you know, take a shot at what you think. If these are the home styles and the architectural design that you look for, and that the brick on this is a pleasing addition to it, to consider that. One additional thing, the gravel parking lot that's proposed for the park, we don't permit gravel parking lots. We would have that be paved. That needs to be a condition also of any recommendation that you make. The original submission provided for 20 paved spaces. Staff would recommend that be included. The Director of Leisure Services has also reviewed this and is on board with what's being provided. Eventually, he anticipates that the township will need to install more parking spaces based on how heavily this ends up being used. But 20 paved spaces is a good starting point. Staff would recommend preliminary approval of the planned development district conditioned upon them wrapping up the traffic study as mentioned, and doing that prior to consideration of the final PDD. And we have representatives from the developer and from the engineering firm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. Just a note, just a cool question. The park, now this is a dedication, which means it's basically turning it over to the township.
Correct.
Is it considered part of the calculation of open space? So that the percentage of open space includes that? Okay, all right, just need a point of clarification on that. Would you care to come up, and while we're doing that, do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
We've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, my hearing is not the greatest over here. Anyways. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Nikki Jeffries. I'm from MI Homes. I've got Howard Fingerroot here. He's our president, and Bill Anderson. He is our engineer from Atwell. Thank you for having us tonight. Do we have the slides or no? The slides that I sent or no?
Which slides do you want? Because if you want the slides that I sent, then I have to exit out of this and bring your PDFs up.
We can just go off of, do you have the colored site plan or? We can work off this if you don't have it. It's not a big deal. Okay.
I just have to go back and forth, so.
We should be able to stay on this, I think, until we're done. You can go to the next slide too when you get a second. So we are MI Homes. We're formerly Pinnacle Homes. You probably remember us. We developed the manors at the Hamlet, and then the corners at Cherry Hill, and then last year we were here for the towns at Cherry Hill, which we just developed last year, and we're going to start building on hopefully soon. So MI Homes merged with Pinnacle Homes back in March of last year. Pinnacle Homes has been in Southeast Michigan since 2005. MI Homes has been around since late 70s and has built over 100,000 homes in 16 markets. So we are now Pinnacle Homes by MI Homes. We're building homes like I mentioned in Canton here, but also in Northville Township, Plymouth Township, Lyon Township, Novi, and other areas in Southeast Michigan. If you can go to the next slide, Jeff. So this is the site, as Angela pointed out earlier. We're at the northwest corner of Gettys and Beck. It's approximately 89 acres. We're just south of the Charing Cross development, and we are planning on a road connection to that development so that they will have a secondary point of access. Next slide, Jeff. So we're R2 zoning, as Angela mentioned, and we're proposing a PDD, but we will still be going with the 2 dwelling units per acre we'll have a total of 166 units on 89 acres. I think the left side here shows you the master plan, and the right side shows the future land use, which is the two per acre. So we're consistent with the zoning and the future land use. Okay, next slide, please. So this shows the overall site plan here. Over there on the left side, which is the west side, we're proposing what we were calling the active adult units, which will be an age-targeted 55 and up type housing product. Whereas on the east side here, we're proposing the typical single-family lots. Those are the lots shown there in the light yellow. It's split fairly evenly. We're looking at 82 single-family and 84 active adult. Then you can also see the open space we're proposing along with the park, which is down at the corner there. The park is 10 acres, and including the park, we have 49 acres of open space on this proposed development, which is 59%. We're also proposing a pedestrian bridge, so we can tie in the sidewalk from Charing Cross to the north, going down to the intersection, so that the bridge would be crossing the Fowler Creek there, which you can see just north of us. As I mentioned earlier, we're also going to be tying in a road connection to Charing Cross so that they have a secondary point of access. Currently, they just have one off of Beck Road.
And that was originally planned with the original Charing Cross plan development. So right now it's stubbed, the bridge is there and it's stubbed there, so we've asked them to continue that so we have interconnection between developments like we normally do.
Then you can see we're preserving, obviously there's the creek there, so that area we will not be developing, and we'll be keeping the trees and the natural features and the wetlands that are there. There is a small amount of wetland fill that we're proposing, and we will be mitigating for the 1 acre, which is the allowable mitigation per the state. If you could go to the next slide, Jeff. As Angela mentioned, we have been working with the Leisure Services Department on a park master plan for this 10-acre park. We want to dedicate the property so that it becomes an actual public township park. It will become township property. So this 10 acres, we actually brought a park planner in, and we had a design charrette with the Leisure Services Department. Multiple people in the department sat with us, and we went through this design process to come up with a plan. As you can see, we are looking at a pavilion with restrooms, a future playground, pedestrian connectivity, and then we are also proposing some adult fitness equipment, which was one of the first ideas Greg, your Leisure Services Director, had. It's something a little bit different and new, and he had this idea, and then oddly enough, he was contacted by the National Fitness Campaign, which is helping to install these fitness courts all over the U.S. They're trying to do 200 in 2019. So he was contacted by the fitness campaign, and then contacted me and told me about it. And we think it would be a perfect spot to build one of these. They work with us, and they give grant funding, and we'll be paying for 3/4 of it, and then we get funding for the last quarter of it. I think you guys received a YouTube link showing the fitness court. So that's one of the other amenities we'll be proposing here. And then we'll have an open play area at the corner with possible future sports fields as needed, as the Leisure Services Department, as they are needed. Moving on to the next slide. These are just some close-ups of the housing product elevations we're proposing. These are the active adult product, which would be a ranch, one-story product in the 1,400 to 2,000 square foot range. This is some MI Homes product housing product that's being built in other divisions in the Midwest here. It's been very popular. It is less brick, but it's a more modern architecture feel, and a lot of them, as you can see, also offer front porches. So this is something we would be introducing in Michigan. It's currently being built in some of our other divisions, like in Ohio and Indiana and states surrounding. You can go to the next slide. This is some of the single-family idea of what this housing product looks like. These are the two-story, obviously. The single-family housing would be about 1,800 to 2,400 square foot range. And then you can go to the next slide. This is just the final slide, the site plan again, and I'd like to open it up to any questions anyone may have.
Okay, thank you very much. It is a public hearing, so we're going to go to the audience first, since we have that open. Yes, ma'am, come on up. Good. Podium is waiting for you.
My name is Barb Kilgore, and I represent Charing Cross Homeowners Association. So I want to kind of walk through our front entryway on Lindenhurst off of Beck Road. And that actually, half of that entrance is owned, we now find out, by MI Homes. So we want to understand what is happening at our front entrance. We have along that front entrance, along the south side of our entrance on Lindenhurst, is a drop-off to wetlands that has a fence. We've tried to get information from the township since I've lived there for about 6 years, and probably the association before that was trying to get information about, whose responsibility is maintaining that, because Singh did not do a good job. And when Singh left the development, that fence is in poor repair. So we want to know who's going to repair and take care of that fence, what's going to happen with the front monument.
If you will.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, we're just
trying
to get information.
This is.
I was surprised as well. My name is Bill Anderson with Atwell.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And your entrance you were referencing is right here?
Yes.
Yeah, we own right up to your entrance.
Yep, you own up to the
side. Proposing anything, it's all going to be preservation right there.
Okay.
Our units are all south of Fowler Creek. So we will not be doing any development up there.
But you'll be extending the sidewalk.
Other than the extension of the sidewalk out here that ties to your sidewalk.
But do you?
Who's going to maintain that fence area that you now own? Who's going to maintain this whole area?
Well, the wooded area would be part of their common area, Barb.
Owned by these residents, but it's preservation.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that fence that goes to the drop-off is in bad repair.
The owner, whoever owns it, is going to be responsible for maintaining it. So if they end up purchasing the property, it'll be theirs.
Okay, so then
So,
we work with
right.
the township to make sure it gets repaired, because we haven't had any luck.
It's a private property issue. The fence is on private property. Now that they've made aware of it, should take care of it.
And now, part of the monument.
The monument is actually on their property. So MI is going to have to grant you an easement to allow you to maintain your own monument, because for some reason, I think it was anticipated that Charing Cross would be all one association.
Well, we want to do the right thing
Right.
and
So-
work with somebody. We just don't know what to do.
Right, so what happened is when Singh sold it off to the current property owner, they forgot that the monument was on the rest of that property. And it
Okay.
sat there for many, many, many years until it was brought to somebody's attention. So in order for you to get control over your monument and take care of it, they're going to have to either dedicate the property to you or grant you an easement. It's probably going to be the easiest way to grant you an easement.
Okay.
So that you guys can take care of it and make it
I mean,
part
we've been
of
taking
yours.
good care of it,
Right.
but I do have a problem with the fence.
Right, so, yeah.
Fence isn't part of your entryway. It's like an
It-
old disrepaired fence.
So the fence is I would call it an iron type of a fence.
Does it extend from the entry monument down the hill?
Yes,
Okay.
So it is part of the entryway then?
yes.
Right, so it depends on, but it extends down the hill, so it's just not on the corner, it probably extends down there, it's probably to prevent people from getting into the.
So it's like a retention wall area.
You'll have to investigate it, Nikki.
Yeah, we'll investigate it if it's on, we're in the
Because we would
process-
like to work with
Yeah,
you guys.
We're in the process of purchasing the property, but, so we don't own it yet. We're obviously in the middle of it, but call me and I'll come out and meet you and we can take a look at it.
Okay.
So I gather there's a property line in there that has to be established as to who is the owner
Right.
of that fence.
Well, right now, the fence is owned by the current property owner they're under contract with. So whoever buys the property will be responsible for the fence, and then they'll have to coordinate with the existing Charing Cross Association on the easement for the monument.
Gotcha.
We actually had the property surveyed some years ago, right when Singh was pulling out, to understand what we were responsible for, because we really didn't know. And at that time, we were trying to we found out we didn't own that, which was a surprise to us, because we've been taking care of it, watering it, doing all the, things. And we still are, except for we don't want to touch a hardscape kind of property, fence that's not ours.
Right, I understand.
So we're just trying to understand
Okay.
and make
Thank
sure
you.
we move forward both, and work together.
Sounds like it will be
Well,
covered.
and we'll ask MI Homes to put something in the development agreement relative to the disposition of the fence and the monument, so that it gets taken care of as part of their development agreement.
Okay, so, and there's two more things. So as you go back in the back along, Haverford is at the tail end of the subdivision. So we had, or before Singh pulled out, I don't know if, I believe it was them, it was at the very last minute, we were told we had to put in a turnabout there that is not very attractive and is only used by the garbage trucks. And, I mean, who's going to take that out? It's just asphalt. A temporary turnaround?
That's before they get to that bridge, Jeff?
It's right at the bridge
It's just an
area.
asphalt turnaround at the end of the road before you get to the bridge, so.
Yeah. I mean, we're a small homeowners association, so it's like taking that out
Right, that's
is
the
a big
next-
deal for us. Taking it out for you guys, you got big equipment in there, that probably wouldn't be a big deal for you guys.
Okay.
We,
all right.
I mean, we want to work,
Sense.
we just want to understand and work with you. And so then the last question I have is, when Singh was originally supposed to put in Phase 2, we were told all along that then they would dredge our detention basins at that time because of the builder sediment and all that kind of stuff going into our basins. Will that happen after this occurs, after this development occurs? We don't have detention basins as large as they do, but we do have some along Haverford. Am I,
The question is, are they connected to our retention?
and are they connected?
We are not,
So I don't,
you have detention basins north of Fleming Creek.
Okay.
We're not using them. I'm not suggesting or recommending that I get involved in that.
okay. I don't know how all that is connected.
That would be Sharing Cross's.
You've got your own detention ponds, it'll be no way impacted by them, so.
Okay.
Other side of the creek, so.
Okay. So that's all I have.
Okay.
But I just want to work with you guys. As an association, we want to be here to work with you guys and know what's kind of going on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else like to comment? Yes, sir, come on up.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Dimitrios Jim Bigas. I live on Lindenhurst, just as we go into Charing Cross.
Okay.
My concern with this is that the density, and I do not understand why do we want to change from R1 to R2?
It's already zoned R2, sir. They're not changing from R1 to R2. They're utilizing the existing R2 zoning. So they're basically developing in accordance with the R2 guidelines. Okay. They're not increasing the density at all.
My concern is by opening all these with 160 so many homes, that will generate a lot of traffic on Lindenhurst, because Lindenhurst is towards town, and people live in the homes or coming home from the town, they're not gonna go all the way to Geddes, to go north, to go west to Geddes. They're gonna cut in through Lindenhurst, and that is a concern of mine.
Right, I understand that. Jeff, how many homes were originally planned for that section of?
124.
So you're actually.
This was already, it was always originally planned for that road to connect on, essentially in the similar configuration as you see it. Essentially, they're using pretty much the original road alignment that the original Charing Cross development did. Our ordinance requires 2 point of access for any development over 20 lots. So unfortunately, when Charing Cross Phase 1 got done, they extended the road and the bridge over and dead-ended it. They never built Phase 2. So now we're getting Phase 2. So this was always planned. From a public safety standpoint, there needs to be more than one way in. So that's why we required the turnaround before they finished the streets, because the turnaround at the end of the street, people were using the last person's driveway to turn around at the end of the road.
And there
So
are a
we
lot-
required the original turnaround, and for fire safety to be able to get in and turn their emergency vehicles around at the end of the road. So that'll be an issue that they can resolve amongst the two of them. But extension of the road through to development, it's not a direct connection out to Geddes. They also have their own connection out to Beck Road, so they have 2 points of connection. So, I mean, anybody using that would be a pretty circuitous route to wind through the condominiums to get into the south end of Charing Cross. Plus, it provides the Charing Cross residents a way to get out to Geddes Road without having to go
Without
through the
having to
Beck
go on
Road
back.
intersection.
Right, plus there are
So
less
there's benefits
homes than
there's-
originally planned.
Yeah, so there's benefits on both sides, public safety plus convenience of both neighborhoods to be able to go back and forth.
In that, though, we're open, I think we should be open to work with the developers, because Lindenhurst and Haverford being private roads maintained by us, and now they're going to be used by all kinds of other people. The initial plan was to be one homeowners association, Charing Cross. Now we're going to have another homeowners association using our roads that we're going to be maintaining, and that's
If I may interject, there will be a lot of use of their roads by your subdivision as well.
Not necessarily, because our people are already used to come in through Lindenhurst.
Trust
They're
me,
not
when
going
they-
to change
when they have the opportunity to go down to
behavior.
Geddes that way.
Okay,
they'll-
sir,
they'll
we
do it.
understand your concern, and that's something, as you work with the developers, if they want, that may be something that you decide upon in terms of having an umbrella homeowners association
Right.
to manage the roads in there, that would be up to them, and you to propose that, but that's something that could be on the table, but that's not something that's required. That'd be a private agreement between the two associations. Okay, thank you.
Now, the other concern, looking at this, the other concern is, and my daughter just walked out from buying a home because of not enough parking spaces for visitors. Look at how condensed the adult community is, and there's no parking for visitors. That's a concern, I believe. Just me coming from walking out of a deal because of no visitors parking.
Is there a calculation on the per unit parking availability?
They have parking in the driveway, and they have parking on one side of the street, just
Side
like
street.
any other development. So even though it looks like it's dense, those are individual house pads instead of lots. So essentially, it's very similar to a standard development. So the roads will be 27 feet wide with parking on one side. They won't be a narrower condominium street. They'll be the standard 27-foot road with parking on one side like you guys have, okay?
And one final concern, I don't want to be holding you for too long. It is that what we saw on the slides for the types of homes, there are no brick, and that is totally different from what we have. You come into our subdivision, it's all brick, all four walls are brick, and now we're walking, we're driving through or connecting to a subdivision that there's no bricks, the garages are up front, and they just they don't match our neighborhood. This is a concern.
Understood.
This is a concern. It's going to devalue our neighborhood. We're proud of our we're proud of our neighborhood. We're taking pride, taking good care of it. And now we're going to come in. We're going to, real estate people are going to bring people in our neighborhood looking at those homes being part of our neighborhood. That's a concern of mine.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate it. Anyone else before, okay, we've got a couple more, sir, right here.
Eric Meinhardt, excuse me, 3671 Times Square Boulevard. So essentially, there's me. And first of all, I'd just like to thank the commission for about, 10 years ago, we went through the Oakwood debate whether or not to put a huge medical facility with a parking structure and a helipad and a roadway where they're now going to put homes. So thank you so much for your consideration or your reconsideration of that proposal. For not having that in my backyard, I very much appreciate it. I just wanted to quickly ask, is there any, given that, sorry, that my house is right there, is there any barrier or berm or fencing or anything going to be put in between the two neighborhoods?
Nikki?
Just landscaping?
That would be an issue.
Well, generally, from single family to single family, we don't require any buffer yards between single family developments. Bill, there is a tree line along there with your
There
utility
absolutely
planner.
is. And I'm not coming from a place of complaint, just more of curiosity.
Yeah. Are you trying to maintain that tree line, Bill? So the only thing that may impact that is when they do their rear yard drainage plan, that may impact the trees along there due to grading. So we can't guarantee how much will be maintained, but they don't want to take out more than they need to. Okay.
And I would like to reiterate what the previous gentleman said, that I do think the addition of more brick to less is a benefit to the community and to the look of the homes. So I'd encourage you to, wherever you can, increase the amount of brick in your proposals. I understand that the Cherry Hill Village area has less brick and more siding material. Also the side entry garages, but with the way your layout is, I don't think that's going to be super conductive to your plan there, but that is definitely a part of our community. So again, thanks very much for the hospital.
Thank you for your comment. Yes. I remember that time. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Yes.
And I'd also like to remind you all to fill out one of those pink papers and leave it up there.
Yes, anyone who comments needs to fill one of those out, please.
Hi, Susan Torgerson, and I live on Lindenhurst in Charing Cross. Just had a couple of questions. I, too, would like to thank you for reconsidering the hospital, and welcome. And love that you're going to build a neighborhood there. Was there going to be a walking trail anywhere along Fowler Creek or within the subdivision, the planned development anywhere?
Would you like to address that?
There are some paths, whoops, go ahead, Nikki. There are some paths here that run from the road through the middle of the development along here.
How close up to the bridge area does that come?
To the edge of the woods, yeah.
Will you be running the sidewalk over the bridge as well?
Yeah, it's what? Yeah.
Through your neighborhood and into the park.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Will you be doing phases 1 and 2 concurrently? In other words, I understand there are different types of housing. You have the active adult and then you have the single family. Will you be building these and selling these at the same time, or was your intent to do the active adult first and the single family second?
We're actually going to do our phase 1 is actually part of the active adult and part of the single family.
And where will that be?
So this, you can see the phase line here. This is phase 1. You can kind of see the 2 entrances will be part of phase 1. And phase 2 is this portion, and the portion that connects up to Charter Cross. So we'll do both housing products in both phases.
Right. When did you intend to get started with this after it's approved, if it's approved?
If it's approved this year, we would hope to start site development this summer,
Okay.
June, July, and with the hope to start building homes in there at the end of 2019.
The end of 2019?
Yeah, this is the first phase of basically a 3-phase approval process. There's a preliminary PDD, which we're here tonight, so this still has to go to the board for approval. Then they have to come back based on all the conditions and comments that are made, and they need to do final revisions to the plan and the agreement, and they need to bring it back for a final public hearing with the Planning Commission in a couple of months. So then it goes through another public hearing process for the development agreement. And then what they would do is they would bring back a site plan for the first phase of development, and then we would look at the specific details of that particular phase. So we've got a little bit of work to do, to get to where dirt is being turned, because they have to start engineering it and doing all of those kinds of things. Some of the utilities are in terms of water and sewer lines from, through the western portion of the development, but there's stormwater work that they need to do. They have to do additional tree survey information for us for the site plan and those kinds of things, so.
Were you going to put all the roads in at the same time? In other words, connect up to Charing Cross at the point where you start the first of
The
development?
Charing Cross connection would be part of phase 2, so that would be like a year to 2 years after.
Okay.
Yeah,
What about the sidewalk and pedestrian bridge that would connect to Charing Cross?
that would go in at the same time as the road.
Okay, so phase 2, or the...
Unless we determine that they need to make that road connection as part of phase 1, and that's a determination the Planning Commission Board may need to make when they review the phasing on that.
I would like to say I've missed the ability to ride a bike or walk. You can't, because you kind of have to cross the road, and there isn't even a sidewalk there where the villages of Maple Creek are. So it'd be great if that got done. Hello, in the first part of it.
We also will be connecting a sidewalk.
That's what I was talking about, where there's that, you would need to put a pedestrian bridge over the creek and...
Yep, we're going to put a bridge in over the creek, so that would tie in all the way down to the intersection from your development.
Well, for what it's worth, 2 cents, I wish that would go in with the first part, so that it was traversable.
That part is going in as part of phase 1.
Okay.
It's just the portion on the internal road that connects to Haverford.
Yeah.
That sidewalk would be phase 2.
That's
but
fine.
Okay, Nikki, when you're talking, I need you at the microphone so we can pick you up.
I said the back road sidewalk would go in as part of phase 1, and then the internal sidewalk that connects to Haverford would go in as part of phase 2.
Great. Have you guys considered a light up by your side of the bridge? It's very dark back there.
We haven't considered one, but it's definitely something we can look at. I don't know if that's something that is allowed.
You can put lights wherever you want to put them, Nikki.
Well, it's a significant stretch, and then metal disappears a little here and there. And
We don't have any street lights along Beck Road, so
Right,
it's a matter of whether or not you make a
would
path
seem to
connection
be
and
at the
whether you
bridge.
want a light for safety with your path connections, so.
They're only required to have lights at the entrances off of the main roads, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So.
Pedestrian bridge or at the road bridge?
like here, where this is Charing Cross, and this is you.
Okay.
And so there's the bridge, like something in here. That's a very long stretch of dark. You might want to consider putting a light there to protect the metal.
We'll definitely take a look at it. We haven't looked at lighting yet, but we can definitely take a look at it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your input. Yes, sir, come on up.
Hello, I'm Brad Back, 3088 Haverford. I'm the last house in Haverford, so this is going to affect me the most. First question is, how often has Canton granted builders to only do less than 50% brick?
Currently, Cherry Hill Village has very little brick on those houses. The Pulte development on Denton Road, they're single product, and I think some of the other senior kind of single-level product has gotten modifications to go down to about 33% brick. So it depends on the style of the house and whether or not the Planning Commission feels it's appropriate based on the design of that particular house. So that's something they haven't discussed yet tonight.
Why are we moving away from brick?
Well, I think because in some instances, the type of development that's proposed doesn't always conduce, brick for that style of home is necessarily the best product for that style of home. And that, with those particular design elements. And that's really a decision that the Planning Commission makes on a project-by-project basis.
Have you guys done a study on what's going to affect our home values around? Because these look like they go in Westland.
Current property values are $180 to $200 a square foot for new build, regardless of the material they're made from. So basically, any new development that goes in is going to increase the value of the homes around it because their comps are going to be much higher than comps around you, regardless of whether you're brick or whether you're siding.
So we're going from like my house is 3,700 square feet.
Doesn't matter, the size of the house doesn't matter.
But I'm just saying on who it attracts.
It's a,
I mean,
it's a,
come on.
it's a square foot issue.
Yeah.
So price per square foot issue. So, basically, the assessor is going to, appraise property based on comparable values on similar style homes in the area. So this area may not even be a comp to your neighborhood, because this is a different style and type of house. So it's a different product, because it's going to be a different type of ownership. It's going to be under a detached condominium type of ownership, where all the outside is maintained on half of the units.
So when you guys plan and you're connecting to another neighborhood, do you try to have the same architectural style to the neighborhood, or is it just whatever goes? I mean, because that's kind of the question I asked for you guys, because it would be nice to have the same styled house if you're going to connect the streets with us versus
I think the planning, well, the planning commission has to look at what's to the east and the south and the west and what's around it. They have to look at the separation between neighborhoods. They have to look at, market issues. There's a lot of things that MI went into when they proposed this particular product. The planning commission hasn't had any discussion yet on the product, so.
Okay. And then I just ask you guys, when you start to think and approve it, what are you guys looking for Canton to become? Are we looking to downgrade the houses to smaller houses and bring those people in? Or are we trying to maintain a single-family larger house? I mean, you guys are all over the board, it seems
Yeah,
like.
your question is kind of negative, and we are not trying to downgrade Canton in any
Okay.
shape or
Yeah,
imagination. You
just-
might feel that way, but that is not our purpose,
Yeah.
and no
I think
one
in the
wants
past
that.
25 to 30 years, what Canton has strived to do is provide a wide variety of housing product at different ranges so that everybody can move through a starter home to a large estate home back down to an empty nester home. This product is basically a transition from the senior products to the east and to the south, where the condos are, to the south and the east, to provide more of a single-family transition from the condominiums to be more of that senior kind of empty nester product. And I think that's where they're striving with the product here. It's in Van Buren School District, so there is some aspects of the market relative to the school district and what can be marketed here. So they're going towards more of the empty nester type of product, where a good portion of it's going to be maintained for the homeowners. So that's just a different kind of, it's just a different animal, so.
And I know at the Pulte development, that's senior, you could build on slabs. Are we going to allow slabs here, or is everything going to have a basement?
That's up to them whether or not they want to provide a basement or not, so,
But there's no zoning on that.
no.
And then is there any zoning on front opening garages, or no?
If a lot is a certain size, there's an option to go to a side entry. So for like R2 and R3 with a side entry garage, you have to have, at least an 85-foot wide lot, which I think Charing Cross has the 85-foot wide lots. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir, come on back. Yes, sir.
How are you?
Good.
My name is Ron Carroll. I live in Chatterton Square. Address is 3915 Strathmore Lane, Canton. My concern with this is construction traffic to build the subdivisions. I live right across the street from where the southern exit or entrance to the new proposal would be. There's no traffic lights between Beck and Denton Road. Just to get here tonight, leaving at 6:15 from my house, I had to wait for probably 30 cars on Getty's Road heading east in order to come here. No traffic lights or anything. I'm not proposing to put a traffic light in. I just think it's a bad spot for an entrance exit to this new proposed subdivision.
And that'll be something that Wayne County will have to look at, and we're still evaluating as part of the traffic study.
Well, the other thing is even if it is proposed, where's the construction traffic going to be? How bad is it going to beat up the roads that are currently in need of repair now?
Yeah, we're not that far along yet, so.
Just something I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, because nobody's talked about that yet, and I know Beck Road's atrocious. And, you know, I understand, I was here for the same hearing everybody else had regarding the hospital moving in. I didn't want to see the wetlands go because I love to hear the frogs and the crickets and stuff at night. But I understand progress is something that we all have to look forward to in order to build this community. I've lived here for almost 20 years now. Great community. So you guys have done a great job. I'm just trying to protect the interest as a taxpayer that, you know, we have to pay for the roads, we got to pay for the schools, we got to pay for the police department, fire department, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, those are things when they come into a, you know, once we get through the conceptual design phase and they go into more of the detailed phasing in terms of which portion they're going to do, and they get through the traffic study, then our engineering department will evaluate where the best location is for a construction entrance, because obviously if they're going to start at the front and move backwards, they're going to have to maintain a construction entrance to the back at some point. So we still need to talk to them about phasing a little bit.
As far as the park goes, the park is going to be gifted. Did I hear that correctly?
If the board agrees to accept it. So they're proposing to develop it. Originally, they wanted to develop a park, and they wanted to give it to this township, and they said, well, if you want to make it a benefit, develop the park for us, and then give it to us. So the benefit we have right now is they're willing to actually do all of the improvements to the park and actually build the park. Because it's not only going to benefit their residents, it's going to benefit you as a resident that can use that park, benefit the people in Central Park South that haven't, you know, because we don't really have any public parks down in that portion of township. But it's ultimately up to the board when they approve the planned development district whether they're going to accept the park once it's completed. So that's a decision that the board will make as part of the development agreement approval.
The event that it does go through and the park is approved and it's gifted. Monitored.
Right, like any other public park, our leisure services department will take over maintenance of the park.
We have kids in the area and stuff like that, and the last thing we need is undesirables hanging out there in the park and causing a ruckus and things, but.
With lots right across the street from the park, we'll have eyes on the park, so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Cindy Schmura. I'm also at 3671 Times Square Boulevard. I think I have an easy question, but when this development goes in, will we actually have a sidewalk on the north side of Getty's? Right now, anybody who wants to walk or jog, we have to cross the street. And you've heard everybody say how busy that street is, but can we actually all be connected as a community?
Except where those two houses are.
Okay, that's fine, because we all know them because we all live right by them, so.
They're required to put in sidewalks along all the main county line roads. The only problem is we have a gap there, as you can see in the middle where those frontage houses are.
Yep.
So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? If you make it quick. We got to go.
This is the longest meeting we've had in a long time. So.
Yeah.
You didn't think it'd be that long.
The question I have is the adult living houses, are they going to be less taxed properties? Because in other states, they do not pay education since they don't have children.
These are all, if they're for-owned properties, these will be condominiums.
Right.
Condominium ownership.
Okay, so.
Pay taxes.
They're ownership-based, so taxes will be based on the value, you know, just like your property is.
Thank you.
Okay,
Was
thank
quick,
you.
right?
Thank you. Okay, I think that does it. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, you know, we're just going to go for like a free-for-all here. So anybody up here want to make a comment, concerns, questions? I have a few myself, but I'd like to hear
Start
other
here, or
people's.
free-for-all, or-
Just, who wants to be first?
I have a question regarding the township park and, you know, the structure. Well, once you build it and give it to the township, who maintains and, you know, the upkeep? Would it be the responsibility of the?
The township would. Once it's dedicated and the board accepts the park, our leisure services department would accept maintenance of the park.
So, does the township feel that there's a need for a township park in that area? Is that the opinion of the?
The leisure services department feels, because we don't have a public park in this area of the township in the southwest portion, so there is no direct access to a park in this area. So this is, the 10-acre park would be in the scale of a neighborhood scale park. It's not a big, large community park. So leisure services, Greg Hohenberger feels that this would be a benefit to the township to get a built park dedicated to them that they don't have to spend money on building. It'd be a great benefit to the community. So it's up to the board, though, to make a final determination whether or not they're going to accept it as a public park. So that decision hasn't been made until the board sees it.
Thank you.
If, along those lines, though, if, okay, for whatever reason, if the board decided that they did not want to accept it, that would just become an open area in this project?
Well, they would develop it as a private park, and it may not be as elaborate as a private park, but they would then bring a
It would still be a park
modification back
either
as
way.
final. For example, once this goes to the board as for the preliminary PDD, and the board goes, no, we don't want a public park, then they would go back and determine what kind of improvements they wanted to make to that as part of an amenity for their development. They need to come up with a benefit to do a planned development. There has to be something more achievable than just a standard development for under a PDD. So they have to determine what the benefits are going to be. So right now, their major benefit is not only is maintenance of the natural features on the site, but dedication, construction and dedication of the park.
And it would still be required as part of their open space requirement.
Right. I mean, they may configure it a little bit differently, but yeah, it would be still, I think that was their desire from the beginning, was to maintain the corner as open space.
One of the goals
Yes.
of the township is to have a park within 10 minutes walking of every resident, so that's one of the.
Okay, so this kind of fits into
Your livable
to
and
that plan.
walkable goal, yeah.
I have a lot of questions, actually. So your schedule of modifications, there's a Schedule B in the packet, and so you're looking at reducing, there's a minimum for R2 zoning of 100 feet for lot width, and we're looking at reducing it to 55 feet. Lot area, we're going a minimum of 20,000 square foot down to 6,600, so there's a lot of modifications here. And my concern, I mean, I love the park, I love the layout, my concern is the brick coverage. The brick coverage, the minimum of 50%, PDD proposal less than 50%. I mean, that I'm worried about not having a set amount of a minimum without just, so I don't know how to do this.
Well, I think as part of the final PDD, they'll have to firm up their architectural elevations and give you a certain percentage of, and then for you to, I mean, right now you're just looking at front elevations, you're not looking at sides and rears. So they're going to have to develop, give you more information as part of the final PDD and come up with a final determination of how much modification they need. For example, I think on Grandview, I think we went down to, I think 33% brick on those, and on the corners, wherever it was visible to a street, they had to have brick up to the, basically gable line, so the street frontages pretty much had to be brick. That was a different style of house. So in this particular case, as I mentioned before, you need to look at the style of home, whether you feel it's appropriate for the area. It's going to look very different with brick on it.
Right, but in terms
Right.
of the motion we're going to make in the end is we're going to accept something less than 50%.
Well, right now,
toss-up.
it's not determined, and that's what I'm saying, is they'll have to get more specific with their designs and come back and give you a specific minimum percent.
Okay, so, but in terms of our motion, we aren't going to say we're going to accept less than 50 if we really haven't decided on the type of house yet.
Right. So, I mean, that might be a condition of your
Yeah.
approval, is they have to come and be more specific.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I vote for that. Also, disabled accessible. Are your senior housing is going to be, all of them are going to have disabled accessibility into each one?
Might as well stand up there, Nikki.
Yeah.
Might as well stay
Might as well
up
stay
there.
there.
If, they can be, if needed, we can make that an option. It would be based on the buyer.
If they're seniors, that's a high requirement. What about wetland fill?
I think Howard can address that a little bit more, so.
Yeah, this is marketed to the active adult, and our typical active adult buyer is 50 to 65, 50 to 70. So we, on occasion, if a buyer needs to have it ADA accessible, we build it for them, but that's not part of what we typically do, and nor are many of our homeowners in need of such.
On the detached condos, Howard, are you going to allow no basements as an option?
You know what? Until the gentleman said it, I hadn't even thought about that. I've never built a house without a basement. So I don't
Sometimes
think-
with active adult, I know in Grandview, there's an option. Not very few people are taking that option, but that allows that unit to be more accessible if you can bring it down to slab on grade. So.
Yeah, no, we're probably the largest builder of active adult in Southeast Michigan, and every one of our homes right now has a basement.
We may want to specify that in the agreement, because R2 also has a minimum house size, so you may need a modification to your minimum house size if you're going below what R2 normally requires with or without a basement, so we'll need to look at that.
Also, active adults, we're also looking at more and more people aging in place. So even though you're saying 55 to 70, people might not just move out at 70. So, you know, a lot of our ADA folks are saying, remember us when you're looking at these developments. So that's really important to consider, not just think that people are active and that's all that's going to be there. So that's a big consideration. Also, who's going to maintain the pedestrian crossing once it's in? That would become the townships then?
That would be theirs.
The townships?
That would be theirs.
Okay, to maintain.
Wayne County's going to give them a permit for the bridge crossing. Sidewalks would normally be ours under sidewalk maintenance, but something like that, they're probably going to have to maintain that as an association. If it's a bridge crossing, that's generally going to be theirs.
Okay. You also talked about wetland fill. What would happen to the water then? I mean,
Well, they have to mitigate, I think they're talking about filling about an acre of wetlands, and then they have to replace it with 3 acres of wetlands on site. So it's not a matter of water, it's just about, you know, there's little pockets and fingers of wetlands that run through the site. So in order to grade out a portion of the site to get the lots, and so you don't have a wetland going through the middle between 2 lots, part of that would be graded out, and then in part of the open space area where there weren't a wetland, they create more wetlands. So that's a state process for their wetland mitigation permit. So, but I think they're going
We're in for a permit with the DEQ right now.
Right.
So that is, it's regulated by the state. So they go out, review it, look at all the wetlands, make sure what we are saying is they're on board with, and then they come back with a permit with requirements for mitigation, which is typically, we have to mitigate for more than what we have filled in. So that will be part of our approvals that we have to get before we can start construction.
And we'll see that as part of the site plan process further down the work, that, you know, they'll show us the actual wetland survey and the wetland mitigation plan.
you also talked about 25-foot setback. You know, we have a requirement of that, but you'd want to go with MDEQ. What is the MDEQ setback usually?
Well, if you're modifying setbacks, generally then there is, or wetlands, there is actually no setback. So we're waiting to see what DEQ comes up with a mitigation plan. So our 25-foot setback is required to basically protect the existing wetland that's there from a grading standpoint, so we don't have soil erosion and degrading of the edge of the wetland. So if they're modifying the edge of the wetland, there's no need to have a 25-foot setback because DEQ is given a permit to modify it. So that's what the modification is just to take care of those edges that DEQ is going to modify. There's no reason to have a 25-foot setback from it anymore because DEQ's allowed them to mess with it.
Hey, another thing, back in Getty's, we know that's a bad intersection. I mean, that's jammed. Many people have gotten in accidents there. There's no left turn lane right there. What would it take to change that intersection?
We're waiting on the final traffic study for it because some of the assumptions in the traffic study, we needed more model information in order to evaluate that. It may already be deficient. It may not be something that we can require them to repair, but it's something that may be warranted for, I mean, the turn lanes are already there. The light poles are already there, so Wayne County may just need to add signalization to put the left turn signals in. They may need to change the signalization. That's something we're trying to find out from, one, is there an existing deficiency in terms of delay and backup at the intersection and which directions, and whether or not the left turn signals are warranted. So that's something that we're still trying to figure out.
If the intersection had to be widened, would you have to move any of the sewage underneath? Or I know some of the intersections we have difficulty expanding because of
I don't know.
the existing
Until it's
infrastructure.
engineered, Anne Marie, I'm not sure. It's pretty flat out there. I don't know that you might have to move a fire hydrant or something depending on it. But all of the lanes are there for the turn signals. The left turn lanes are there already. So, you know, in terms of a geometric change, because we actually required Selective to do the signal when Charing Cross came in to begin with. So that signal improvement and that intersection improvement was actually done by Selective when they did the first phase of Charing Cross. So, but right now, since Charing Cross was done with all of the additional development going in and the fact that Getty's Road has really become a commuter corridor to Ann Arbor, the left turn protects are probably now warranted, and we just have to wait for the county then to evaluate that, design the signal upgrades, get them to fund it, and approve that. So we don't know until we get the survey back, but when we get these traffic studies, we send them to Wayne County, so Wayne County is aware of any potential problems that are theirs to fix.
And that would include maybe even a cutout along Getty's then, all right?
Well, they'll evaluate, I mean, the traffic study will evaluate the driveway entrances and whether or not a bypass lane or a turn lane is required, and that'll be part of, the standard requirements that we require for any development. So the big thing I think that you're bringing up, we know there's an issue with the intersection with left turning movements at rush hour, so.
Looking at the aerial here, it looks like both Getty's and Beck both do have left-hand turn lanes.
They do, but it doesn't help that much.
Reading our traffic study, I believe that was a deficiency, was the left-hand turns, and our traffic consultant recommended that we make some modifications to that signal, the signal timing, so there is ability to turn left, but that, like Jeff said, it's being reviewed by.
So there's a signal timing issue, plus whether or not there's left turn warrants there.
Right. So all of that, the county has right now, and also your engineer, so that will be something we are definitely
We just
looking
needed to
at.
get the actual model, so we could run the model to see what was going on with it.
I like the idea of everything. My concern is just voting on it without that 50% more solidified and some other questions that we still need answered. That's just my opinion.
I mean, if everybody's hung up on the brick and you guys haven't had a full discussion, I mean, you guys can decide whether or not to grant the modification or not. If you don't grant the modification, they'll have to design it with 50% brick. So, I mean, if you're comfortable with them coming back at final, showing you a final house design and then setting the minimum modification, because this right now is a preliminary, so you're not approving anything other than the concept, okay? And making recommendations to the township board on whatever conditions you'd place on preliminary that they have to address to come back for final. So that's what you're identifying. You've already identified you're not comfortable with the brick modification, so that's going to be a condition that needs to be either more specific or you're not going to recommend granting it. So, I mean, that's something that you need to include in your motion.
As the resident architect on the board, I just want to point out that I think the elevations look pretty nice without all the brick. I mean, these house styles do actually lend themselves to the siding that's shown, I think, but I'm probably the only person on this board who might feel that way. I don't know, but.
I just want to make one comment on that. We're trying to do a little bit different style of architecture, as Ms. Zuber mentioned. So we're not trying to make a cheaper house. We're trying to offer a little bit of a different housing product that maybe is a little bit different from what is all around here. We're not trying to make something that's cheaper and we're looking at something that's a little bit more modern, a little more current with current architectural design standards.
If I may add, this, these elevations that we're seeing, this is not etched in stone. This is a concept, and this is what's being proposed at this point. I would say that we still have the opportunity to examine the style and the architecture of this. The gentleman that came up before, who expressed his concern about the larger homes that are north of this development that are still off of the same road, they don't quite go hand in hand. I would like to see personally not only maintaining the 50% brick, but actually exceeding the 50% brick, but with a little different style. These homes that we see right here, we actually have that product in the development that's at Denton and Getty's, the southwest corner of that new development. These are very similar to that. And they have brick. They have more brick. I would like to see something a little bit classier, quite honestly. If you're going to go smaller, and looking at the schedule of modifications, 45% reduction in lot width, lot area reduction of 67%, and then the setbacks reductions there. If we're going to go smaller, then I think we need to upgrade the quality of design, those features, the brick and, maybe entrance ways a little bit, classier, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to look at a different design feature of these homes, quite honestly. I also have a concern with the sidewalk on the south. I'd like to add that stretch of the two homes into the public improvement?
We have no control over that because the right-of-way is not there, and we can't put a sidewalk there if we don't have the right-of-way, Greg. So that'll have to be a gap project that.
Is that something that the township can
That's
work
something
towards?
that-
Because
well,
it's
that's-
going to be a gap for a long time otherwise.
Unless they can get an easement from the property owners to extend the sidewalk, we can ask them to see whether they can get an easement, but the right-of-way is not there for the sidewalks. It would require either us to get an easement or the developer to get an easement to get a sidewalk across there. I mean, we brought that up when we talked to them originally at pre-app, and we kind of
Because-
asked them, and a lot of those residents don't want sidewalks in front of their homes because they still feel
I understand,
they don't want that
but
intrusion.
it
So-
serves little purpose to have a busy street like Getty's
Right.
and people on the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden they have
But-
an area
but
where
what-
they have to go out onto the road.
But one thing that they have done is they brought a sidewalk down from the end of the cul-de-sac, so you can take the sidewalk up through the development, back and around, and get to the internal path system in the development. So Nikki can kind of show you that. So you can go up along from Getty's Road up to the end of the cul-de-sac. You can go up to the road and then get over to the internal path, and then get over to Getty's Road if you wanted to, or to take the internal streets and get to the park. So they have provided some accommodation since they don't have that gap, control of that gap.
I understand, I
So-
understand. Let's see, other comments that I had here. Let's see. Did I hear somebody clicking their tongue over here? Patience. Okay. Oops, wait a minute. Okay. Oh, one question. So we're dealing with two different associations when this is all said and done, correct?
Potentially, yeah.
Because the first thing that I see is a problem in terms of establishing dues for, because you're dealing with two different products and two different set of criteria. I don't know how that works in terms of establishing dues.
Well, Greg, like in Cherry Hill Village, there's the condos and there's the site condos. So they have basically Cherry Hill Village 1 and Cherry Hill Village 2. The dues are very different based on the type of product it is. Cherry Hill Village 1 are the site condos. They don't pay for maintenance of the exteriors. Cherry Hill Village 2 has a different whole assessment formula. So it could either be two associations with an umbrella, or it can be one association that has two different sets of dues setups based on the type of ownership. Is that correct, Howard? Okay.
Okay, that question's answered. Let's see. Bear with me a moment. Township Park. The use of the road that goes from Beck Road, okay, whether you're going into the homes or going into the park, that's obviously going to create a greater use in that certain area, that area, which means maintenance is going to be a different issue. Is that road going to be totally maintained by that subdivision, or will that road be maintained by the township because it now has that park?
Association.
So, okay, did you have some thoughts on that? Because I see a problem there.
The
in
condo
terms of-
association will be maintaining the road. The township will not be maintaining the road. They'd be granting us an easement for public use over that section of road to get to the park. I think Angela included that that's in the agreement, that's in her initial presentation.
additional burden.
That's something that we don't want control over.
I understand.
So
I
that was one
understand.
condition of us accepting the park.
Because many of our subdivisions today have road issues that they cannot afford, just like basically a lot of the governments can't afford road issues. And that's a potential problem I see down the road.
Well,
Excuse the pun.
if it's in the agreement and it's in their bylaws and master deed, then it's not a potential problem. So, we're hoping that people will walk to the park, Greg.
It might be a sidewalk issue then.
Well, and we'll ultimately take care of the sidewalks, so.
In terms of the playground equipment, it's mainly adult, you said it's adult equipment? Now, obviously, it won't just be adults using it.
Child's playground plus an adult playground.
Plus.
The
Okay.
adult fitness center, yeah.
Okay. Yes, go
I
ahead.
just want to clarify that. We do have a child's playground as part of the master plan, but that is not one of the amenities we're proposing to pay for. We have a list of the items in that park plan. Obviously, when we did the design charrette, everybody has a lot of big ideas, and there is a, limit on what we can spend on the park. We're spending a big amount, but the child's playground is not part of what we are intending to pay for.
Is that clear in the agreement?
I don't know if it's in the agreement, but it's in the plans.
Okay, it needs to be in the agreement in terms of what you're paying for and what you're not paying for.
Okay.
Okay. That's going to be there's probably going to have to be an agreement between the township and them on what's going to be included, not included, when all said is done. So, okay.
Can it be included, or is it included in the preliminary homeowners association bylaws or covenants, a rental limitation, rental unit limitation? It's just a request. It's not a demand. Because I know the township is basically concerned that we don't want to become too big of a rental community.
Are you talking about condo owners renting their units out?
Yes.
Are you going to have a limitation on the condominium owners renting their units out?
Can you look into it? Okay.
You probably have a provision that requires condominium association notification if they're going to rent a unit out, right?
Right.
But I understand, but you do have the distinct ability to do that in a homeowners association agreement. It can be stipulated in the agreement.
Just come back
But not
next
they
time
do
and let
that.
us know, Howard, so.
Okay. Let's see, I think that's pretty much all I had. I think that's all that I had. Anyone else have anything to add?
Nope. I had some questions.
Sure.
Now I'm starting to think that when I look at this map, of the park, it might not be all that accurate. It sounds like you were just putting some pretty pictures in there. Like it says there's 25 parking spaces, but then it sounded like there was the 10 on gravel. Not excited about gravel.
Gravel, we require pavement. The ordinance requires pavement.
And so you had a thing here for 25 spots. I don't know if you're, then decided that wouldn't be what you wanted? Since you aren't having the child playground either?
I think the initial plan showed 20 to 25 paved spots.
Well,
And they came back with the
I
revision.
don't think we ever had originally said paved or unpaved. This plan allows for 25 spots total. It's coming down to what we can pay for and where we should spend our money. Like I say, we met with Greg Hohenberger, the Leisure Services Director. He and I talked through this pretty in depth about what he would like at this park, and we were balancing between the adult fitness equipment, the child playground, the pavilion, the parking spaces. And so what we're proposing as our dedication or our gift to this park is per these discussions with him, and that's how we came up with the pavilion with the bathrooms, the adult fitness equipment, and building a portion of the parking lot in gravel, along with all of the grading, the sidewalk, and the landscaping for the park. Now, obviously, this master plan has additional amenities, which would be the future, plan for this park, the vision for this park. But at some point, we can only pay for so
Okay.
many items.
Okay, what we need you to show is what's going to be provided and built by you.
It's
and then-
listed just below this.
I know.
Okay.
And the agreement needs to specifically identify what you're proposing to provide when you turn it over to the township, so that the township board understands what they're getting and then what they're going to have to spend to complete it, if that's part of the case, so.
So how does that affect us and what we are doing here?
Just need to your condition would be provide more specificity on the completion and turnover of the park, so, and then the board will have to flesh that out.
Okay, and then the only other thing I wanted to say is that it turns out I'm an active adult. I did not know this was a term.
I'm almost one.
I'm 60,
Better than
so I
innocent
fit
something.
as an active adult. I like the idea of more modern condos. I thought I was a brick person, but then I really didn't like the one that was a brick, so I don't know where I am with that. But I liked your more modern idea. But I don't think I feel strongly about brick either way. Other people that feel strongly, I'm happy to go with that. Yeah, I,
And you have the full set of plans? Yes. Okay. In the bottom left, we
the place you can barely read, that part.
Well,
They probably have a little smaller. Remember, I'm an active adult.
hopefully, it identifies very specifically, in addition to the 10-acre property on prime real estate, it identifies all the specifically what we're including as part of the park donation. But on the next submittal, if you want it identified illustratively different, we can make that amendment.
Wow. I think we need to make sure it's written in the agreement, too.
Greg.
Right, yeah, I see where it is now.
Greg.
Are you
I
guys
just was
planning
looking
to,
at pictures.
are you planning to donate that mountain too, just out of curiosity? The mountain
In the
lower-
photograph.
Zoom back out, Jeff.
That's the landfill down on Michigan Avenue.
landfill.
So,
Okay, thank you.
I apologize, I have a couple comments to make. When I see a site plan from a developer, I don't expect to see something on the plan that is not going to be covered by that developer. I'm really disappointed that I was led to believe that there's going to be a playground on there, and then I actually have to read this tiny print to find out that actually we're not gonna have a playground. I don't expect that from you guys, I really don't. We work with you in Superior Township, and I expect better. I also don't like the fact that the traffic study is not completed. I really would have liked to see a traffic study. This is a busy area. If I lived where these people lived, I would absolutely want to know, what does the county have to say? You know, what does the traffic study say about the intersection? I don't like the idea of approving it conditionally. I really wanted to see that traffic study. I feel like we were not given the full banana. I'm disappointed. I don't feel comfortable approving this.
Well, that's
I
why
think there's some information that's definitely lacking. I would have liked to see before this.
Okay, well, that's why there's a two-stage PDD process, and this is a preliminary conceptual plan. So this is the point in time so that they understand what your concerns are, so they know what to bring back for final. So that's why we have a two-stage PDD process.
I think a traffic study should be,
We have a traffic study. We've evaluated the traffic study. Our traffic consultant said we need more information and we'd like to review the model. So we've seen it, so we know what the issues are. Most of the issues are going to be existing deficiencies, okay? So there are some improvements that, like Nikki mentioned, that to the intersection in terms of geometric improvements that they're probably going to have to make. We know what those are. But until we can't come back necessarily with a final recommendation, and there may be things that we can't require them to do, and then we need to go back and forth with them to figure out, okay, what are you going to do and what are you going to offer to do? And is that enough?
I would have liked, I think it should have been given to us prior to this. I do. It's final is no place to figure out that there's problems with the traffic study.
Okay. But we're not going to bring back a final to you until we understand that and we have a technical recommendation
That's
from
the
the
only point I
engineering
wanted to make.
department.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's, okay. Laura, that's not their fault. That's my fault. Okay? And that's typically, historically, when we're between preliminary and final, we're going through, it's a work in progress. And the traffic stuff is usually always lagging a little bit behind because we've done an initial review of it. We've told them, here's what we need to do, because we send it out to a private peer review organization. So Martin Parker at Wade Trim is our reviewer. He's come back and said, this is what we need so we can finish doing the traffic review so we can make our technical recommendations back to the project sponsor. So that's something that it's very typical that we see that at preliminary, but that's on me. I didn't have to bring it to you. We could have scheduled it next month. But unless they know what your concerns are, then they can't move forward. So by putting this off another month, we need to get all of these other things on the table so they can address them all at one time. So when we come back for final, it's complete and you know exactly what you're approving at final. So I know everybody's uncomfortable with different parts of it because it's, it's a work in progress, but that's typical of a larger preliminary plan development.
So do we need to settle then on things like percentage of brick?
Well, you need to make recommendations on what needs to be addressed for final. So if you don't want to, if you want to make a recommendation not to grant a modification, that's fine. Then the board can weigh that in conjunction with the request. If you feel that you need all of the traffic information settled before it comes back for final, if you need to make a recommendation on whatever you feel is appropriate, that's what it is. Because the plan development district agreement basically includes all of the sets of minutes and conditions. So they have to identify in the PDD agreement what the planning commission conditions are, the preliminary, and then the agreement has to identify how the board has resolved those conditions in the agreement. So it's a process. So when it goes to the board for preliminary, they may go, oh, we're not going to approve this. You need to go back to the planning commission and resolve these things before we even consider preliminary. But at this point in time, you're making a recommendation on what you feel is appropriate for them to address. Because you're not a decision maker, the board is a decision maker. So there's a lot of things in motion here with the park, with the traffic, with the brick modification. So you need to basically put your conditions basically in your motion so that the board knows these are things that are important that need to be considered and resolved before it comes back.
Okay.
So,
Can I make-
it's not like we're going right into site plan because they have to come back through and go through a whole nother public hearing series with you.
Commissioner Green, I have some comments.
Can I just respond to one thing regarding the park? There was no bait and switch here. We met with the park department, Park and Recs department, and they asked us for a master plan. We said, we'll get you the fabulous master plan, but we can't afford, there's not so many dollars we can do every component of it, but we'll show you a great master plan. We work with them back and forth. We put that master plan on there, and then we delineated what parts we could do. When we submitted it in the full-blown 2-foot by 3-foot, it's very easy to read. Obviously, you get a miniature copy, and so it looks like it's fine print. But they wanted, the Parks and Rec Department wanted the whole master plan, and we delineated what we would give there. So there was no bait and switch, and we're just doing what we were instructed by the Parks Department.
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, I think active adult, active community, no, almost.
And I will be glad to have Mr. Hohenberger at the next meeting so that he can, talk about the park and what their department and the board is willing to do when they come back for final. So it's clear from a policy standpoint internally, where they're going with it.
I think the product is needed in the community. I think it's a great opportunity to provide an adult active park in that area. I think it's a great idea. Just a couple of questions. What is the typical square footage of the single-family homes?
At 1,800 to 2,400.
And what about can you go back, can you go to the overall? First of all, I would say that I am one of the people that agree with the 50% brick. I would like to see that. And one of the reasons why is I'm looking at this and I see the community above, to the north. And those are 3,000 square foot plus homes with brick. And then it's just weird to see that road flowing, then all of a sudden it gets to really small adult active community houses. And then towards the corner, it goes back up to the 14 to 2,000 square foot homes. But yet the adult active park is on the corner. I would have personally liked to see it flow from the larger homes to the medium homes to the adult active homes on the corner, which is right next to the park.
Okay, there's two concepts here. There's the active adult, which we market 10 to, like I said, maybe 50 to 70.
Yep, which is a lot smaller.
The park, there's not like a toddler play park. Instead, it's a fitness park. And so I would envision people from high school age all the way to, 80 years old using the fitness park. So the fitness park isn't necessarily tied to the active adult. It's for the whole community, and it's for a wide range. Anybody that works out could, could use this amenity.
But obviously, from the videos and everything that we were shown, it's geared towards the adult active community. And again,
Oh,
what I
no,
don't
it's not.
understand,
It's
hold
not.
on, hold on.
Okay.
What I don't understand, again, is it's kind of like we're tucking these really small houses in between a really large subdivision and a small one. And I don't understand why it doesn't just kind of flow nice. I don't understand why it doesn't go to the 3,000 square foot houses that are existing to the 18 to 24 to the smaller 14.
The question is why don't you flip it east-west? I think it was a comment that I made initially when you came in, and I think part of it has to do with the road and the depth of the lots off the road.
And I think, and this is just again, I have an architectural background, so my thought is I have a 3,000 square foot all brick homes. Then maybe I have a 50% brick, 2,400 square foot homes, and then maybe towards the side, we can look at a little bit less, more modern, smaller homes. But right now, there's no flow. It's just patched.
We were looking at the massing of the ranches, the lower massed houses against the existing subdivision and trying not to be as obtrusive. So that was the thinking there, that we would have the less obtrusive houses next to, backing up to the Central Park South.
Well,
Part of it, some rhyme and reason to
But
it.
I think Alan is, what the comment that Alan's trying to make is when you come down the street from the existing subdivision in Charing Cross, you're going into the smaller product rather than your larger product. They've got two-story brick houses, and basically you're going across the river and through the woods, and then you're entering into basically ranch houses that are without much brick. So there is a little bit of discourse between there where if you flipped, and we talked about flipping the site condos to the other side early on, and there were reasons why you guys didn't do that. Part of it was part of the layout where the existing utilities and things were. But basically any of those houses, Alan, fit on any of those sites. Basically, they all pretty much have a 40-foot wide footprint.
Right.
Whether it's a two-story house or whether it's a ranch house,
Right.
they could be built on, you could put a two-story house on the pad over there in the detached condos if they wanted to. They don't want to do that because they want to separate the active adult from the two-story product a little bit, just from the style of ownership, because the detached condos, the active adult would be more of where all your exterior maintenance is taken care of and all your lawn's taken care of, to your site condos, which would be more a traditional single-family
Right,
product.
I get it, it's basically the same lot layout. I just don't understand why we're sticking the smaller seniors right in the middle of 3,700 or 3,000 square foot homes to the 2,400 square foot homes. I don't understand the flow. But that's just one person up here.
Until he brought it up, Commissioner Ocon has a very valid point in terms of flow of the site. I would like to entertain a different layout, quite honestly.
I mean, if you guys have a lot of heartburn with this, this is not something that they would want, but you can always table it and have them bring it back. So if you have specific recommendations that you want them to bring back, and if you're not comfortable with various aspects of this.
Since they would have to bring it back anyway, would they be bringing it back then as the first? Because we can include all of the...
If you're not comfortable with the layout and the flow of the development, and they have to change the concept of how the thing is lotted out, then I would not recommend that you go forward tonight. I'd recommend them tabling, because then it's going to go to the board and you don't know what you're going to get back.
Right.
I mean, if that's not an issue, the other issues I think can be taken care of as conditions before the board. So that would be the only reason I'd recommend a tabling, is if you want to see a totally different layout, and then I'm not sure where we go from there.
With the additional comments, I would agree to that. I don't know how everybody else feels with that, but I would agree with that, to table it.
Do you want a list of things to table, or?
Bill, just let them talk for a few minutes, okay.
So do you want to, if we say table, do you want to list now of what we want to see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, somebody needs to make a motion.
Yes.
Okay. If you're going to make a tabling motion, there's no discussion. So if you want to continue to discuss it before you make a tabling motion, go ahead and discuss it. But once you make a tabling motion, there's no discussion on the tabling motion.
Okay, so...
Per Robert's rules, once you make a motion to table, you make a motion to table.
We can't...
If you're going to make a motion to approve with conditions, then you can have somebody second that and discuss it, and you may not approve that motion and go back to a tabling motion, or you can continue to discuss it until you're ready to make a motion. However you want to do it.
I personally would like to table it and the developer has heard everybody's comments, I'd just like to table it and have them come back with a plan that
It encompasses
they
the
think
things we
meets
talked
what we've
about.
discussed tonight.
They've heard our concerns.
So we don't have to go through a laundry list of items, that's basically already been done.
It gives the developer an opportunity to choose in what they want to make changes, what they don't, and
Alan, are you making a tabling motion?
yes, I make a motion to table.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor to table this project by Commissioner Okon and second or support by Commissioner Graham Hudak. Any further discussion?
There's no discussion on the tabling motion.
No discussion. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Okon?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Ataria?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham Hudak?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, no. And Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this item is tabled, and the public hearing's been held, so we don't need to hold another public hearing. It's up to you whether you want us to re-notify residents.
Could I make one suggestion that the builders meet with the associations around, because they never met with us, so we could discuss?
We can request it. I'd
That's-
say that's up to them to do that.
We always recommend that
Yeah,
anyway.
we always recommend that. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Can we take a nap break?
we'll let the room clear.
Put some steps on these babies.
Try to find out what the score is of the football game.
Really just have to redo it.
They just weren't comfortable with this.
Excuse us, could you guys take the conversations out into the outside area so we can continue the hearing,
Yep.
please?
We've-
Excuse us.
We have work to do.
We have to keep working, so, and it's late, so please, no offense, but please leave.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Our fourth agenda item is the Allrig development, where we're considering a site plan approval on property which is located north of Ford Road, between Canton Center and Sheldon. Angela, could you tell us more, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. You saw the special land use proposal for this, probably at your last meeting, it's located where the Elite Eye Care building currently is. They'll demolish that building and replace it with a new one for the proposed restaurant. The Board of Trustees did approve the special land use on December 13th. A copy of the site plan was included with your analysis. They're proposing to maintain the existing parking lot configuration. The site was developed in 1979 prior to adoption of a lot of our ordinance requirements, including the requirement for a 20-foot wide parking lot, islands, and peninsulas in the C2 zoning district, and including minimum widths for foundation planting beds. They do propose to construct the parking lot peninsulas that satisfy the interior parking lot landscaping requirements. However, they can't accomplish the 20 feet in every single dimension requirement that we have today. There are currently no parking lot islands or peninsulas on the site. There's just the large green area separation between this property and the adjacent property drive that extends out to Ford Road. The foundation planting beds are reduced to 5 feet. Our minimum requirement adjacent to a building wall is 10 feet. The plant material that's proposed for this is suitable for the smaller area and is viable in that kind of an environment. The ordinance also requires that all commercial and industrial sites be furnished with a 10-foot by 50-foot loading space to accommodate deliveries. That's the size of a tractor trailer. That space also may not conflict with spaces for vehicle parking, for drive-through, or serve to satisfy both requirements. This business won't be receiving deliveries by vehicles that large, and they instead will have deliveries before opening and a large loading space is not needed. They have shown a 10-foot by 30-foot loading space, which will meet their needs. The site plan conforms to all other ordinance requirements for commercial zoning, the CBD overlay, which they're a part of, and also the downtown development district. With respect to landscaping, parking, lighting, and the required minimum open space, also the location of the DDA garden wall. As we mentioned during the special land use consideration, access will only be from the existing Newtown Plaza Drive. There won't be any additional access to Ford Road for this. Staff recommends approval, including the modifications that are outlined, and Mr. Amon is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Angela.
Good evening. As the applicant for your final item, we'll try to be as quick as you would like us to be, but we'll try to thoroughly answer all the questions that come up.
Thank you for sitting through all that.
It was tough.
It's about time you had to sit through that.
I wonder where that encouragement for them to meet with the associations may have come from before they left the room. So, anyway, so I was trying to coach a few people back there, but anyway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have with me Bo Wynn of Detroit Architecture, Jake Modesta from Fieldstone Engineers, and Brandon Schramm from Allrig. So if I feel like a question's too tough for me, I'm just kicking it to them, and they'll have to deal with it. But hopefully we'll be able to answer your concerns. When we were here last time, we heard some concerns about the overall appearance of the building. Part of it, I think, was based on the fact that we didn't think that the depiction did it really justice. Secondly, though, it's a different kind of a color than we're really used to. We've gone through this period in Canton Township where we've had a lot of earth tone red brick type commercial developments. And in fact, there was, I think, a few years where if it didn't look like it belonged to Greenfield Village, we weren't going to approve it. But those were decades, maybe 1 decade ago. We've since diversified with things like IKEA and Art Van and places like that or whatever. And particularly along Ford Road, we've had a lot of different buildings of different colors. Whether related to a brand or a logo or a design or just an operator trying to stick out and say, look, we're different than the others, so you see us by the nature of our building. And that's part of what's behind this design. And actually, when I was looking for other examples along Ford Road, although we have a color board, I'm going to give it to you, we'll pass it along so you have it. You can look at it. Talking there.
Make that big enough, Brian?
Yeah. Well, I beat Bo up a little bit. I said, really, that's the brick you brought me? But anyway, yeah.
3x2 sample.
Yeah, he's really generous with his brick sample. I was so pleased. So anyway, but I think the use that is closest to the actual color what this is would be what you see essentially the front panels of Chipotle to look like, essentially the same kind of grayish, earthish, sandy tone of whatever. So anyway, with that, though, we're really prepared to answer any of the questions you have. Angela covered the modifications precisely. This is a very difficult site because of how narrow it is. It's one of the last small commercial sites that have not been redeveloped on Ford Road, and it becomes a simple factor of whether you can find a use of a size that will fit on there or not and make it feasible. And so it's a difficult fit, we realize, but it's one that we think the parking fits. We actually increase the open green space from what's now, we increase it on this newer development. There's more green space compared to what's there now based on, it's just to spread out. We're using it more effectively on the internal drive in the back as opposed to just one big area on the side. So with that, I'm gonna just be quiet and answer any questions you have, because I know it's been a long night for you already.
All right, thank you so much for that. Commissioner Ocon?
Gonna start down here, huh? Just a couple questions. Jeff, I know this went through ZBA. I'm sorry, Angela, went to ZBA. And got a couple of variances approved, right?
The only variance they got was actually to the width of the property required for a fast food restaurant because their width is actually on the internal driveway, so.
Okay. So what about no drive-through passing lane is required?
No, and the nature of this use is, as a Smoothie King, I think we put in writing in the application and the material submitted, their anticipation is between 200 to 300 customers a day. So it's not, whereas like McDonald's handles that in about an hour.
I'm not concerned about the Smoothie King. What I'm concerned about is obviously, the business that I'm in, we go into conversions all the time. So if this ever got shut down or converted, bought out, and flipped to a different type of restaurant.
The fire marshal doesn't have an issue because he's got access to, most of the other sides of the building. He doesn't necessarily need Usually the bypass lane is for emergency purposes. If somebody's in their lane, it's like if you go into Wendy's right now on the opposite side of the street, you're in that lane, there's no bypass lane.
No, I guess my question to you is
There's
if
no
this was,
specific
if
ordinance
this was
requirement.
never, we don't have any kind of ordinance at all about a drive-through business providing a bypass lane?
An escape lane.
No. So the answer is no.
Right.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
It becomes a marketplace answer. People, if they don't like it, they don't come back, and so, yeah.
We encourage it, it's not necessarily an ordinance requirement, so.
No, I think I'm looking forward to it. I looked at the online, the webpage, and seems kind of something different, you know.
Next January, we'll all be there, because it's a New Year's
Yeah, a
resolution.
sample would have been nice.
Yeah, well, we violate the ethics ordinance if we do that, so, yeah. Oh, well, now, we'll be, believe me, when there's the opening, you'll be getting samples. So, yeah, you're on the list.
Commissioner Eggenberger, you good? Commissioner Perkins? I'm good as well. Commissioner Zuber?
I'm good.
Commissioner Graham, everybody must be
Are
tired.
you okay with the brick?
Yeah.
It's a little Ohio State-ish for my liking, or the sweater that the chairman's
That's why
wearing,
Jeff
but
likes
beyond that.
I've got plenty of stickers.
I
I've got
forgot
plenty of
you're a
stickers
Buckeye.
for your window.
Yeah. I forgot you're a Buckeye.
So the DDA approved the color then?
No, not the DD, no. The color has only been before you and the board. You, as a planning commissioner and the board, the ZBA did not have anything to do with the color. The ordinance does not have a color requirement in it, so.
Well, with the DDA though, would the DDA have it?
Their wall will have their color. It'll be their brick wall color out in front. We won't be out modifying that color, yeah.
As a mother who's been in many drive-throughs, I just have to say how many times I've had to leave drive-throughs because of kids
I get it.
screaming or something, so. Yes.
You can just drive over.
Drive over the lawn?
Yeah, go drive through
Is
a
there-
Comerica. It's going to be all cool.
But in the future, if like you say, Marcus says, oh, yeah, we needed this bypass, is there a way to do it? Is there a way to do a cutout somehow into the?
Short of an easement with Comerica as something to that effect, but because of the size and the nature of these sites, I don't see that. They have great security issues, and they don't like people protruding into the drive-through area, because when people pull into there, they have concerns about people approaching their vehicles from any direction or whatever. So I would say I wouldn't expect it. I don't want to mislead you. I don't think there's any possibility of doing that.
What is the timing to get a smoothie? How long does it take? Ordering?
Oh, it's quick. I mean, they don't make anything here per se. They mix existing elements together, so they compose it. But food-wise, they're all packaged foods, so they're not waiting to cook eggs or bagels or anything like that or whatever. It's strictly all prepackaged in that regard. So this is one of the quicker, faster experiences you have. So.
Think of a kid screaming they have to go to the bathroom in the back seat, and I'm stuck on car number 5.
We could offer a vodka insert into the smoothie, but I don't, a new business line.
The building heights and everything is sufficient to screen the rooftop units from normal views from the ground, et cetera, et cetera? I
Yes,
mean, we're
Mr.
always
Chairman.
requiring that.
Top screen up here, Greg?
Yep. There's the screening.
Top screen.
And we are more than 50% brick. I just want to point that. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Thank you for that.
Sore point. Sorry. No, sorry. No.
You're exposing the cracks in our planning commission here.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Acharya?
By the way,
I
just
don't have
another
any
example.
question. No
While there
question.
may be some concern over the color, the other closest example to this on Ford Road is the newer National Coney Island. So it's very similar in terms of the materials, tones, and bricks. So it hopefully will give a little peace of mind on that. So.
Anyone else have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
I move to recommend approval of the site plan for the Allward fast food establishment, including a modification to reduce the width of parking lot islands below the required 20 feet in any single dimension. It's shown on the site plan dated 12/14/2018, to reduce the dimensions for the required loading space to 10 foot by 30 foot and permit the foundation planting bed width along the west side of the building to be reduced to approximately 5 feet.
Support.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Perkins and support by Commissioner Zuber. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Okan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger? Yes. Commissioner Perkins?
Yep.
Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham Hudek? Yes. Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and condolences on a long night, but great work done. Hopefully the beneficiaries will be the residents that are in that area of that project.
Were you billing that whole time?
What's that?
Were you yelling that whole time?
No, I was tempted to.
We want smoothies, if that's the
Yeah,
case.
let me tell you, no, I used to represent them, but I don't anymore for other reasons. Sorry.
One attorney to another. boy,
Next,
I tell you,
please.
you know. All right, we've got some business to send to staff. We've got Hayden's multi-tenant Children's Dental Care of Canton, Ford Canton Center Office Building, and Fire Station Number 2. Do I hear a motion to send that to staff?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And then we've got a public hearing to set for February 4th, S&S Homes, Messeri consent judgment, Fire Station Number 2. Do I hear a motion to set that
So
public
moved.
hearing?
Support. Support.
I'm like a cow.
Yes.
All right, we got a motion by Commissioner Acharya and support by Commissioner Perkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
Wait a
Yes.
minute.
Oh.
We are done. Isn't there one?
Any final words from Angela before we go?
Oh.
This is Angela's last planning commission meeting.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah,
make
thanks
a
for
really-
torturing her tonight. so.
Yeah, really.
I like watching her turn red.
It's not you, Angela.
Reverse hazing.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say
moved.
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Anybody opposed that wants to stay here all night?